Majority Report with Sam Seder, where every day's Casual Friday. That means Monday is Casual Monday, Tuesday, Casual Tuesday, Wednesday, Casual Hump Day, Thursday, Casual Thurs, that's what we call it, and Friday, Casual Shabbat. The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
It is Friday, October 23rd, 2020. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Washington Bureau Chief from the Intercept, Ryan Grimm, will be here. Also, later in the program, comedian Tim Heidecker will join us, and the filmmakers of a documentary out called Man Card. Meanwhile, a sedate but at times incoherent Donald Trump fails in the final debate. Negotiations on the stimulus continue, but McConnell's dream of leaving Americans in the lurch looks to be fulfilled. And signs point to a massive Democratic early vote lead. So the Republicans head to the Supreme Court to make mail-in voting harder. COVID spikes as the nation sees its second highest, or I should say its highest daily total. U.S. signs an international anti-abortion declaration. Minnesota and Michigan Senate races tighten, worry Democrats. A Republican House candidate in Georgia attacks a reporter for working for, quote, non-white males, for, quote, aiming to ruin white males. And lastly, the Trump campaign is surveilling Philadelphia voters in what looks like an intimidation or perhaps an invalidation scheme. All this and more on today's program. Welcome, folks. It is Casual Friday. As you can see, I'm wearing a soft-collared shirt today. We are now just about 10 days away from the election. A week from Tuesday is it's the final day in which you can vote. And so it's not, we already have record number of votes that have already come in, and in various states around the country. And last night, the debate, obviously, I'm not sure what the numbers are in terms of how many people saw it, but I think to the extent that people did see it, I don't anticipate it's going to change the dynamics of the race too much. I think it probably helped Biden. We're going to be talking with Ryan Grimm about that. But one of the things that that Donald Trump attempted to do last night that I don't feel like it was terribly successful, but we will see in the next couple of days, is to get the American public interested in emails that are purportedly from Hunter Biden. I don't know what it is they think about emails, have such an allure. But Donald Trump spent an inordinate amount of time talking about Hunter Biden's emails. There's a tweet this morning from a reporter from Fox News that I think it's very hard to assess what's going on here, because apparently there was a press conference yesterday by this guy Tony Bubalinsky, and who is was a business partner of Hunter Biden's. as well as I guess also having worked for in the adult matching industry. More on that as that develops. But Bob Linsky gave a press conference where he said, I'm not going to go into the evidence I have of the allegations that Joe Biden was involved in our business deals, but they're here on 3 phones. And he showed the 3 phones, and then he walked off with them. And the emails that are purportedly from Hunter Biden remain only in PDF form and have not been, widely distributed. But in this instance, we have a reporter. Can you put that up, Brendan? It is from Jackie Heinrich. And what she wrote was, I completed searching all of Tony Bobulinski's emails. I guess these are the ones that Hunter Biden participated on. And they established that the chairman, apparently, supposedly, Hunter Biden would refer to his father in code as the chairman. They established that, one, the chairman is actually China. There is no role for Joe Biden in the emails and documents. And Bobulinski states himself there are no other members besides Hunter Biden, Jim Biden, Rob Walker, James Giller, and Bobulinski himself. Now, this Jackie Heinrich is a national correspondent for Fox News, covering the 2020. She is a 3 times award-winning, Emmy award-winning reporter, host for the Fox News Rundown. I can't say I am familiar with her work, but I suspect that that she's not looking to simply run interference for Joe Biden, at least as a career move over at Fox News. So I don't know what to make of that, but I'll tell you who would be really upset to hear all of this is Don Jr., who, after the debate last night on Sean Hannity's program, was very agitated about these Hunter Biden emails or laptops. Or here's Don Jr.
Russian disinformation. There's literally zero evidence that it's Russian disinformation. The director of national intelligence said it. And by the way, more importantly, the FBI said it. And I don't say that because I think the FBI has more credibility. I say that because it's pretty clear that the FBI has done whatever they possibly could to hurt Donald Trump. So if they're even coming out and saying this, meaning the upper levels of the FBI, the door kickers love us, not so much the bureaucrats at the top. But if even they're coming out and saying, yeah, there's absolutely no evidence, that doesn't prevent Adam Schiff and MSDNC from being out there and peddling this thing as though it's real Russian disinformation. It's been corroborated.
Phones,
it's real.
emails.
Joe Biden is corrupted and compromised, and America has to know it, Sean.
Wow. He had a lot of energy for that time.
Take a breath.
Wow. The door kickers love those guys, not the pencil pushing geeks, bureaucrats. It's very odd that they waited this long to drop this stuff, because it's not exactly. I mean, it's not quite clear what the narrative that they're trying to push is, and they're not going to have time to develop it. And I'm not there's a lot of desperation, I think, there. There's absolutely no evidence whatsoever that Joe Biden was involved in anything corrupt. I think it's quite obvious that Hunter Biden traded off of his family name. And yes, I think that's corruption in some form. And it's a corruption that permeates our society, as we hear Donald Trump Jr. I mean, how many stories have we had over the past 4 years of one of the Trump children, I don't know, getting their trademarks in China because of some deal, or closing deals, Jared Kushner closing deals for financing for real estate projects. I mean, that is all corrupt. Joe Biden's son trading off of his name is not something that we should be excited about, but it doesn't have any bearing on Joe Biden necessarily. And there doesn't seem to be any evidence of that whatsoever. Apparently, the Fox News is reporting that the FBI is going to look at Bobulinski's phones for whatever evidence that they're looking for. But it is hard to imagine at this point that this is going to develop into anything one way or another. But I guess we'll see. You also have to wonder if this isn't something that a narrative that they're trying to build in the event that Trump loses. Usually these things are sort of win-win on both sides. They want to be able to run with something even if Trump loses. So, Benghazi lasted for 3 or 4 years. They had a lot that was very durable for them. All right. We're going to talk to Ryan Grimm in just a moment about this and other things. In the meantime, today's program is sponsored by Sunset Lake CBD. We've talked about them quite a bit. They're a farm up outside of Burlington, Vermont. Started out as a dairy farm, supplying milk for Ben and Jerry's ice cream, and then they diversified a little bit a couple of years ago. Started to harvest CBD, and they one of the things that they do is regenerative farming, and I was curious as to what it means, and basically what it means is that the soil is a living entity, and when you deplete it, you've got to regenerate it, and so it's an evolving term. But for commercial agriculture, it means creating healthier soil, and they do that by reducing and eliminating harmful pesticides, herbicides, fungicides. Their CBD is 100% pesticide free. They reduce or eliminate the use of outside chemical fertilizers. They reduce water usage, reduce and eliminate heavy tilling. Tilling, of course, is when you're digging up the soil a lot, turning it over. They implement cover cropping and seasonal crop rotations, so they don't abuse the soil. Essentially, they'll switch their fields. And their CBD is fantastic. They have tinctures that I use to help me sleep. They have smokables. Matt, talk about the smokables for a moment. You're a bit of an expert. Matt, you there? Well, I don't know where he went. But Matt was a skeptic when it came to smokables, and has been enjoying their pre-rolls and their smalls, I guess. That's his favorite. For me, it's the tincture and the salve with arnica. It's great for sore muscles. I use it for my eczema, but I don't know if it works for other people for that. It does for me. And my mic's dead?
You're fine.
Oh, okay. Matt's mic is dead. Sorry. I use the salve for my eczema, and they have gummy bears, and they have coffee infused with CBD. And for you get 20% off using the coupon code Left is Best. Left is Best is the coupon code for sunsetlakecbd.com. Check them out. You won't be disappointed. All right. Let's welcome to the program the Washington Bureau Chief of the Intercept, Ryan Grimm. Ryan, did I get your title correct? Well, it's connecting right now. Hello, Ryan.
Well, hello.
Ryan, did I get your title correct? Are you the Washington Bureau Chief for the Intercept?
Yes, but can you instead say that I'm the host of the Intercept podcast, Deconstructed?
Yes, I can also say you're the host of the Intercept podcast.
You can skip the other one so I don't sound like royalty with like 8 different titles.
All right, well then,
but it's up to you. I'm not here to tell you how to do your job. I'm just trying to get a plug for the podcast.
I appreciate that, Ryan. All right. First off, I want to do this, okay? I want to talk about the debate. I want to talk about what's going on in terms of the stimulus negotiations and what you think about what happened this week with the Amy Coney Barrett hearings, and also just sort of the way that the Democrats have been playing it. But I want to do one of those like empty the reporter notebook segments with you, okay?
Okay.
Of questions that range here. There's a report out that Bernie Sanders is interested in being Joe Biden's labor secretary. Have you seen that in Politico?
Yeah.
Have you heard anything about that?
I haven't asked about it myself, but they haven't denied it. And so Holly's a good reporter. I suspect that's a trial. That's like a purposeful trial balloon.
Interesting. Okay, fair enough. What have you heard about the Senate races in Minnesota and Michigan? They seem to be tightening, and there was a report that there's at least a significant amount of money going into Michigan. Have you heard anything about those?
No, other than the white working class voting registration numbers are, concerning for Democrats. Both of those candidates are total duds. They're just your replacement level Democrats who, will be kind of dragged over the finish line by Democratic energy if they win.
All right, fair enough.
But
and
most people can't even tell you who the Minnesota one is.
It's Tina.
Most people can't tell you who. I know, but most people can't tell you who either of them is.
Right.
But right, Tina Smith has actively resisted anyone getting to know her after replacing Al Franken.
Yeah, it does seem like these are very low-key senators. All right, another question, because you wrote a piece about two progressives, congressional candidates, who are actually getting support from the DCCC. And while progressive groups had stepped back, you wrote that a couple of weeks ago. I'm curious if you've heard anything in regards to Paula Jean Swearengin. This is actually a question from a listener. And Marquita Bradshaw. Bradshaw's running in Tennessee against Bill Hagerty. Swearengin is running against Shelley Moore Capito in West Virginia. I imagine there's not a lot of money going into the West Virginia race because there's just a presumption that she's not going to do well. I mean, I haven't seen much polling on frankly, either one of these races.
There was a really good story in The Nation that kind of profiled the Paula Jean race. But the polarization in partisan politics makes it so that you would have to have just an otherworldly kind of event, and that's like a Joe Manchin, a guy who people who used to be Democrats are willing to continue to vote for, even though he calls himself a Democrat because he attacks Democrats all the time. But outside of that, because you've got this Republicans vote for Republicans, Democrats vote for Democrats trend in American politics, that she has almost an insurmountable obstacle. Like if you look at Richard Ojeda's race as kind of he
ran for Congress,
right? So, and he ran way out, all the way out in Hinton, West Virginia, like far out mountains, in a district that Republicans usually win by 30, and I think he swung it like 20 points further, in Democrats' direction, but he still lost, comfortably. And he lost to the most out of touch country club Republican that you could imagine. She had everything going wrong for her. She was taking a ton of pharma money personally and in her campaign.
And people, West Virginia is one of the epicenters of the opioid overdose crisis. And
everyone's lives and all of these towns are just being destroyed by the opioid crisis. And against her, you have this charismatic veteran who sparked and led the teacher strikes, and who is raising a ton of money, is as West Virginia as you can come. His parents and grandparents worked in the mines. His father actually came illegally. The grandfather came illegally from Mexico and became a miner. in West Virginia, and he put down roots. That's why his name is Ojeda, but he says it with the hard J, and he still couldn't win.
Right.
And so you don't have to win that district to win statewide, but you've got to make it a little bit closer than that. And so if he can't win against that opponent, it's like, ooh,
there's just it's all negative partisanship there.
Yeah.
And we remind people, Joe Manchin made it to the Senate by taking, I think it was an AR-15 and shooting and literally an ad shooting I can't remember what climate
cap and trade bill. Yeah.
Bill. And he
actually, you know what it was? It would have been Carrie Graham Lieberman, right? Back when Lindsey Graham was cutting deals with Democrats all the time.
Right. So there's that. And so what about in Tennessee, where Marquita Bradshaw is running against Bill Hagerty?
She probably has a better chance than Paula Jean, just simply because negative partisanship doesn't punish you as much in Tennessee. It's still a massive uphill climb, but West Virginia is more Republican than Tennessee is at this point, particularly because Tennessee has the two things that make a state Democratic at this point, which are cities and suburbs.
Right.
In enough of a proportion to make it competitive. And Tennessee is one of those interesting places where, the countryside in America is evolving slowly or disappearing slowly and being replaced by developments, housing developments and suburban tracts of land. And so that changes the political construction of the local areas. And so the more suburban places become and the less kind of rural they become, then it used to be the more Republican. Now it's the more Democratic. And so as places like Tennessee continue to, fall victim to sprawl, they're going to become more Democratic as long as this trend continues to hold.
We're seeing that in places like Georgia and North Carolina, right? I mean, that's really that's happening.
And Texas, like everybody for 10 years was like, the sleeping giant of the Hispanic vote. And when in fact, what happened is that the suburbs of all of these major cities just kept sprawling out. All of these companies came, either set up shop there or came from California or New York and put their headquarters there to take advantage of the low housing prices, the lack of an income tax, all of the other policies that the Republican legislature put in place, and they brought with them all of their employees who are now voting Democratic. And the idea of states having their individual cultures is vanishing as well. If you plop down in a suburb outside of Dallas or Houston, and then you plop down outside of Raleigh or Georgia or Nashville, you're going to find the same businesses, the same types of companies, the same specific chain stores, the same grocery stores, the same types of people who have the same kind of values and interests and relationship to American culture. So the sectionalism that dominated American politics for like 2 centuries is slipping away as these suburbs become more homogenous around the country.
That's fascinating, and I would imagine that these people are all coming from, more or less from the same places across the country in terms of like
right.
Where they're moving to from, I guess.
Right, they're spilling out of Jersey and New York and California, and yeah.
All right, well, so let's get to the events this week. The debate last night. I mean, it had a marked feel of. I mean, the thing that has really, I found, maybe I guess it's fairly obvious and it's not terribly surprising, but the Trump campaign has never been able to settle on an argument against Joe Biden. I mean, it's evolved from like Sleepy Joe. He's gone from Sleepy Joe to now like some type of kingpin, and in the course of like 3 weeks. And I think that's got to be confusing for voters. Like nothing is sticking to Biden because they haven't spent more than a couple of weeks on it.
And you left out what came in between Sleepy Joe and the corrupt kingpin was that he's actually a secret vanguard for the radical revolution.
That's right. I forgot.
So
he's Bernie Sanders in with a Joe Biden mask on.
But then also like cutting all these corrupt deals around the world, but also, sleepy and lazy. So like they managed to find 3 different labels, all of which conflict with each other. Like you can't have a single one of those and have any of the others, unless maybe you could map the Sleepy Joe with like the radicals are going to crush him because he's too sleepy, he can't resist the energy of Bernie Sanders. But that's not what they're saying. They're saying that he's actually a crypto communist, and once he gets into office, he and Kamala, who Trump said last night is to the left of Bernie Sanders.
Wow.
Which, okay, interesting.
That's an interesting guy.
Good to know. She's been playing a real long game here, running from the right in all these elections.
Exactly, as a prosecutor as well.
Yeah.
I mean it had struck me that that is one of the biggest differences that I think between the obviously people people know Donald Trump. He's not running as an unknown quantity on some level, but the idea that at least in terms of the Trump campaign, what they're trying to do, they have not been able to. There has not been a pre-existing narrative about Joe Biden that they can exploit. And on some level, like, for progressives, the narrative about Joe Biden was sort of the slate was sort of wiped clean a little bit during Obama because he laid, he was just the vice president.
Right.
But prior to that, he was the senator from MBNA. And that seems to have like gone into the, down the memory hole, because for 8 years, he was just Barack Obama's vice president. And then people just assumed he wasn't ever going to run again. Right.
The Onion did him, an incredible favor by turning him into this, jean short wearing, sunglass, smile flashing, car dude. Right. That is completely inoffensive to anybody, and you just kind of laugh at him. Like, look, good old Uncle Joe. And it also shows the kind of limitations of what the GOP's kind of slash and burn strategy can do. Like, they needed 30 years to create the narrative around Hillary Clinton so that they could stick, and she continuously fed into it. Right. Time after time.
We should add, part of that was also her gender helped them create
right. That certainly helped. She couldn't be Uncle Hillary.
Right.
And the fact that it's Uncle Joe is gendered, is strongly gendered in itself. That the uncle holds a particular place in our society that the aunt doesn't. Anyway, we could go, around a whole nother bend on that one, but they never did the same thing with Joe Biden for good reason. I mean, they saw him run in 88 and they saw him run in 2008, and there was no reason for them to think that this guy was a reasonable threat to take on the conservative project in any serious way or wind up in the White House except through some fluke. And here we are. And so if you haven't kind of paved the way for some type of a narrative, then it's difficult for it to stick, because people don't pay close enough attention. So it costs you hundreds of millions of dollars to soften the ground, successfully enough that you can turn someone like Hillary Clinton into somebody that has 2 out of 3 people saying that she's not trustworthy. Right. And like you said, you also need the gender dynamics with it as well.
And so based upon that, that sort of pre-existing calculus, it feels to me like Donald Trump failed look, Trump's strategy is at this point is really just to depress the turnout with Biden. And he seemed to try and do that in 2 different ways last night. Do the corruption angle, which was largely incoherent. I mean, there was talk about Hunter, and then things that like I'm sorry. Like,
3.5 million from Russia, or like,
yes. Like, I'm sorry. There's no amount of investigation that people could do at this point to understand what he was saying. Like, even if you, even people at Breitbart, I think, would have trouble sort of divining what Trump was trying to communicate there. And then the second thing was the whole super predator thing, which is aimed at trying to depress Biden's black turnout. And I think I don't know how that landed with people, but I think it's a hard sell. And I think, Joe Biden articulated, when he was articulating about the talk, I think it's quite clear to black folk that at the very least, he knows black people enough to know about the talk and to know some of the details about it. And it's hard to imagine that Trump moved the needle in that regard as well.
Yeah, and he even condemned his own approach to the crime bill. Straight up said that he was wrong about it. I think if you don't have the pandemic, then Trump's strategy makes sense. And if you don't have the pandemic, you might not have the upsurge in Black Lives Matter protests over the summer, which may have been linked to the rising anger that people felt at their general situation in life, as well as the particular crime of the murder of George Floyd. But as unemployment in the Black community was falling to historic lows, as wages were rising, and as Biden was not showing a huge ability to kind of rouse the broader electorate, as long as the economy kept humming from January 2020 up through November, there's every reason to believe that that Trump's numbers across the board are enough better that we're looking at roughly a tie ball game going in here, and that's within the margin for Republicans to steal, either through their structural advantages, which isn't exactly stealing, through the Electoral College and other things, or through their control of the courts and the voting system and the voter suppression laws that have been put into place. So I think without the pandemic, he'd be in the driver's seat right now. He's only down 10 after more than 200,000 people died, and all of the other consequences of his misleadership.
Yeah, I know. I agree. I mean, I don't. It gets a little scary to contemplate. I'm not convinced necessarily that Biden would have necessarily been the nominee. I mean, I think like it was more or less settled when the pandemic hit, but it certainly changed. I think it pivoted the race very quickly in a way that it wouldn't have otherwise. But it is a little bit scary to contemplate a race between Joe Biden and Donald Trump that was based just merely on Joe Biden being a good guy.
Right.
And without a programmatic offering that was going to be substantially different than what Donald Trump was offering. Because, I think at this point, Donald Trump being somewhat sociopathic. I mean, that it came across last night, the way he was just sort of sloughing off these deaths and saying, don't worry about it. Mm-hmm. It could have been 2.5 million, and I don't get any credit for not killing more people. Actually, I think the fact is that if the economy is doing well, then people are like, all right, he's a jerk. And maybe hopefully he'll stop tweeting. I mean, that's basically what we heard, back in a year ago, let's say. And so, it would have been a little bit nerve wracking, but it is.
And if you look at the moment when the polls started really dividing, it was early June. And to me, the moment everything fell apart for Trump was when he cleared the park out in front of the White House using tear gas so that he could hump across it with his generals to like wave the Bible around in front of that church. He has not recovered from that moment. That was a time where something finally stuck to him, and you started to see the 6, 7, 8 point gap open up. And obviously without Black Lives Matter protests taking over the country at that time, that wouldn't have happened, period. But the protests also pulled from him his deepest bigotry. And that bigotry made it, being so on display, made it really hard for him to try to kind of solidify some of the genuine gains that he had made with the black vote to that point. And so he's back to where he was.
It also revoked a license, I think, for some suburban college voters who needed some type of plausible deniability as to who was. I mean, you can look at the RNC and see what they tried to do there, right? Look, I'm on stage, or, not on stage, but here's a video of me naturalizing some citizens. And here's a video of me pardoning a black man. And so, now you have license to vote for me because everything they're saying about me is wrong. And you're not a bad person if you vote for me. But that seems to be out by the wayside. We should say there's still different opportunities for the Republicans. I think it's highly unlikely that Donald Trump is going to get more votes than Joe Biden. He may in some states, or there may be large swaths of votes that through legalistic means are discounted. So we should say that this is not a foregone conclusion. We're just talking about sort of like more or less the political dynamics there. All right. So let's pivot here and talk about the other politics that are going on. There are two major things that are happening right now, or not happening. One is the stimulus fight. So at the last I heard, Nancy Pelosi said that she thinks that they may come to an agreement, her and Mnuchin, but they won't vote on it until after the election. In what possible world if Joe Biden wins and the Democrats take the Senate, or Joe Biden wins and the Democrats don't take the Senate, is this going to get passed? I mean, Mitch McConnell, the moment Joe Biden wins the election, Mitch McConnell goes into everything stops mode. I don't care, let the country burn mode. How is it possible that they could pass something after the election unless Donald Trump wins and Mitch McConnell's the Senate majority leader, and then they're going to pass their bill essentially. And it's going to look a lot like the CARES Act, I would imagine, on some level. Why doesn't Nancy Pelosi take the 1.8 or even the 2 trillion and force Mitch McConnell to force his senators to vote on that? Because that puts Mitch McConnell in a very bad position, and the Republicans in the Senate in a very bad position. And one way or another, if Joe Biden wins, there's going to have to be some measure of relief before February 1st, which is the earliest it will come if the Democrats take the Senate and the House and the presidency.
We don't exactly know why Pelosi won't do this. We know what she has said, in that disastrous interview with Wolf Blitzer. She suggested that she was trying to deprive Trump of being able to send checks with his name out on them. But people close to her say that that's not exactly what she meant. But she won't share with people what precisely is in the package. And so Democrats in the House say, we can't quite agree to this because what if there is infinite liability protection for negligent businesses stuffed in there, a complete destruction of any plaintiff's rights in exchange for 2 months of stimulus. We don't, that wouldn't be a fair trade-off. But they have to talk in these hypotheticals because nobody basically outside of Pelosi and Mnuchin know what the actual details of this package are. Now, Pelosi has told Democrats privately that she very much does want to get some type of a deal through, if only to reduce the price tag of what Biden has to get through when he comes in January, February. And I think that that's perfectly sound logic. If you don't do 2 trillion now, then the additional 2 trillion that Biden needs in January is now 4 trillion.
Right.
And everyone in Washington will say 4 trillion. You can't do 4 trillion. Yet those same people, if you did 2 now and you did 2 in February, would say, well, this is what people are demanding, and this is what economists say is needed. You put that together, and it will create political problems. And Pelosi recognizes that. Yet at the same time, here we are, like not with it not happening.
Is it possible? Is it possible that she thinks that this is going to help Trump that much? Because I don't see how it could help. I mean, if they pass something today, nobody's going to see those checks with Donald Trump's name on it until November, after November 3rd anyways. And
the only other thing you could think is that she's worried that just the news going around, Trump and Democrats reach, stimulus deal of $2 trillion, like that news would send a signal to people around the country that Trump's a reasonable person.
But they did that 8 months ago.
I know they've done it 3 times already. Right.
Donald Trump. And in this situation,
you have to really reach.
It would put Mitch McConnell in a very, very bad position. Right. I mean, because
he would probably spike it. Right.
He would spike it, and then every Senate race around the country would be like, you need to, Tina Smith would have to say to her opponent, like, are you willing to? Are you really going to support the guy who just canceled all the stimulus for people? Are you going to vote with Mitch McConnell? I mean, that if I was running for the Senate, this would be like, this is exactly what I need to win the race.
Right.
It just seems extraordinary to me. And then simultaneously on the Senate side, in terms of the Democratic leadership, you have Chuck Schumer. I don't know what he does as a leader, but we had Dianne Feinstein go in there. They did these hearings after saying they were a sham, and Amy Coney Barrett comes out the other end doing better with Democrats and independents than she did going in.
Significantly.
And Jamie Harrison, I mean, I don't know if he lost any ground because, Dianne Feinstein basically said Lindsey Graham is, they cut that into an ad and basically Lindsey Graham's the old Lindsey Graham. He's not in Donald Trump's pocket anymore. Here's Dianne Feinstein praising him. I mean, this was a disaster, it seems. And then they finally boycott the vote after they had already participated in the entire process. It's completely incomprehensible.
Yeah, Feinstein should have boycotted the whole thing.
Yes.
She should boycott the Senate, period. Democrats would probably be a lot better off. It's awfully hard to teach these old dogs new tricks. Feinstein's been at this game for 60 years or so. And, as she told those 8-year-olds from the Sunrise Movement, you don't tell me how to do my job. I've been doing this for 60 years. I know what I'm doing. And she is strongly convinced of that. And she's clearly surrounded by people who have, helped her believe that that's true. The fact that it's sad, but the fact that Schumer was able to get them to even just boycott the vote was actually a big step forward in a kind of Senate Democratic caucus politics. That's how much room they have to make up. Like, that's how far behind they are. That counted as a kind of significant tactical organizing victory, that they were finally able to do that. But it required them utterly humiliating themselves on a national scale in order to get through to people that no, like what you're doing is backfiring. It's bad for the country and it's bad for Democrats, and it's also bad for our Senate races. Like you said, well, you're out here cutting ads for Lindsey Graham on a national platform.
So how much? And so, I mean, if I hear you correctly, it's like they got their failure was significant enough that it convinced them that we have to do something slightly different. Yeah. How durable is that awareness? Because I mean, I just found the whole thing to be a shocking. Amy Coney Barrett is the most possibly radical Supreme Court nominee we've ever seen. Like the idea that she sat as a trustee on the board of a school 5 years ago that basically said if your parents are gay, you can't come here, and if you're LGBTQ, you cannot teach here. The fact that she signed a public ad, calling for the criminalization of abortion. I mean, this is extreme, and the idea that she comes out with a better rating than she went in terms of Democrats and independents even is, I don't understand. Like, it doesn't feel like anybody there is doing any politics.
Yeah. They also went in with the assumption that they were going to lose and that the best thing for them to do would be to kind of lose quickly and quietly. And so that was their goal, and they set about achieving it. and so, their lodestar is taking back the Senate. And so they also think that disruption hurts Democratic candidates. Like they don't have a reason exactly for that, but that's a belief of theirs that they think if not, they think back to Kavanaugh, and they think that, if it weren't for all these protesters and if it weren't for this contentious battle over Kavanaugh, then, Claire McCaskill and Joe Donnelly, they do better. Maybe they don't win, but they do better in their races. They don't think about the fact that John Tester won in Montana, despite opposing Kavanaugh basically out of the gate the entire way.
2018 was a record-breaking Democratic victory, right? They had more votes in 2018 than in any off-year election in the history. If there wasn't gerrymandering, they would have like 1970s level Democratic majority in the House at this point.
But what they took from that was that Claire McCaskill and Joe Donnelly lost, and so therefore, and they blame the loss on Kavanaugh, and so to get in their minds, that's where they are. It's like, oh God, another Supreme Court nominee. Let's hush up and get through this.
Couldn't they have figured out? I mean, that's what the boycotting the whole thing would have been a much better strategy, because then it's not about Amy Coney Barrett at all.
Right.
It's about the process. And they could have just flagged, here's the Republicans acting. I mean, you're still not going to win, but you're going to gain something. You're going to make the Republicans pay a political cost. And we talked about narratives at the beginning of this conversation. The narrative that the Republicans are breaking norms right now is one that could stick, and is the one that that the Democrats wouldn't have had to do any heavy lifting to promote that one. It is, I mean, whose failure is that? Is there anybody that we can look to and say, this is a failure of leadership in the Senate? I mean, because it feels to me like Chuck Schumer treats the other senators like they're his constituents, as opposed to, like, what can I do for you today? How can I make this easy on you today? As opposed to actually using the leadership to make a coherent message and to do things politically.
Yeah, just like Chuck wants and deserves whatever credit he gets for if they do take back the Senate, he deserves the blame for whatever failures. So it really is Chuck, and you're exactly right. And I don't even think he or his people would necessarily disagree with your characterization of how he sees his job, and that's different than how Harry Reid saw his job. Reid absolutely catered to his members. He knew all of their phone numbers, was calling them all constantly. He had a kind of innate feel for precisely what it was that they needed back in their state, and what would hurt them and benefit them politically, and worked to ease that for them. So he did that, but at the same time, he felt like his job was to be the Senate leader, and that when he needed people to get in line behind a strategy, he would get them in line behind that strategy, which is harder to do in the Senate than it is in the House. The House is a more parliamentarian place where it's more top down. You have people like the Squad who get out of line every now and then, but they don't even get out of line that often. Whereas in the Senate, these people see themselves as independent power centers in a way that they don't over in the House. Reid did a much better job at corralling them because he saw his job as doing that. Whereas, like you said, Schumer sees his job as defending and catering to each and every one of them, with the hope that at some point, eventually, that type of catering leads to there being enough of those individuals in the Senate that he is Senate Majority Leader, rather than thinking like, well, how do we organize into a cohesive block of people who can execute on a strategy?
It'll just come together on its own. And of course, what it also does, and I think this is also, I think, there's a theory out there that Nancy Pelosi, I think it was David Dayen wrote something to this effect, that Nancy Pelosi's out there. And I think she said this on one interview with Jake Tapper. I'm listening to my committee chairs. And so when it comes to cutting the silos of interest that those committee chairs represent, and they could be perfectly valid interests, right? I'm the chair of the Education Committee. Mm-hmm. I want money for education. Nancy Pelosi doesn't want to leave any of those aside in this round of stimulus because it's about maintaining her power as a potential Speaker of the House. And Chuck Schumer, when he is this, asks nothing of his members, but only provides them with services. It's about maintaining his power as Senate Minority Leader and maybe Majority Leader. But at the end of the day, it's rank and file Democrats who are frustrated with what happens. And it's much harder to sort of like make it clear what's going on. Is there any, and we just have a minute here, but is there any frustration amongst the senators that you ever hear about here on the Hill that to that effect? Or are they just, I've got a concierge, why should I have a problem with it?
There is some among the ones, who have more ambition ideologically for what the Senate ought to achieve, but at the same time, there's no real viable challenger at this point. People kick around every now and then that maybe John Tester would be an interesting leader, but there's nobody that could challenge him at this moment. The most hopeful thing for the left is the fact that Schumer is up for re-election in 2022 and is keen on avoiding a primary challenge from his left, a serious primary challenge from his left. And so if the Senate Democrats are seen to be weak and stumbling, then he knows that he'll be blamed for that, and that could draw a primary challenge. So there's a very good chance that in the first year he'll be like a Chuck Schumer like you haven't seen before.
Well, hope springs eternal. Ryan Grimm from the Intercept and the what's the name of the podcast again?
Deconstructed. Deconstructed. It was Mehdi Hassan's podcast, but he abandoned us for that Peacock network.
Yes, in fact, we are playing on the Peacock network ourselves.
Hello, Peacock viewers.
Indeed. There you go.
We had him on last night, actually, for our podcast that we published this morning, Mehdi.
Oh,
and I screwed up. I should have called the podcast "Return of the Medi," but I did not.
You missed an opportunity. Ryan Grimm, always a pleasure.
See you later.
Bye-bye. All right, quick break. Be right back. So we were talking about Donald Trump in his performance in the debate last night, and it was wildly incoherent. And it's the difficulty that Donald Trump has when he tries to define Joe Biden now. And he was, Ryan Grimm pointed out, this is the third iteration of the definition of Joe Biden for Donald Trump, going from Sleepy Joe to actually seriously radical Joe, secretly radical Joe, to now, crime kingpin Joe, all in the span of literally several weeks. Joe Biden has been very
very consistent in his pitch to the American public. And that's basically just, I'm a decent guy. And here he is making that point last night.
You now, you're a politician. I ran because of you.
All right, Vice President Biden, your response to that, and then I do have some questions for both of you.
Well, I tell you what, I hope he does look at me, because what's happening here is, you know who I am, you know who he is, you know his character, you know my character, you know our reputations for honor and telling the truth. I am anxious to have this race. I am anxious to see this take place. The character of the country is on the ballot. Our character is on the ballot. Look at us closely.
Let me ask some follow-up. Please respond, and then we're going to have follow-up questions.
If this stuff is true about Russia, Ukraine, China, other countries, Iraq, if this is true, then he's a corrupt politician.
All right.
So don't give me the stuff about how you're this innocent baby. Joe, they're calling you a corrupt politician.
Well, and again, the problem is that Donald Trump has gone from saying it was Sleepy Joe, who can barely make his way up onto the debate stage, to now he's a crime kingpin who's involved in half a dozen countries around the world.
Yeah, stop saying you're sleepy like a baby.
Exactly. And that's the problem that the Trump campaign has had, is that they have not been able to settle on a narrative. Because again, Trump's play here is to depress Democratic turnout. And he cannot come up with a narrative that will stick to Joe Biden. At one point last night, as they were going back and forth on each other's families, Donald Trump was going in about Hunter Biden, and then Biden was talking about, well, I mean, we've been reading about your family business for 4 years. And at one point, Biden turned to the audience and said, this is about their families. And, for people who watch politics, I think as much as a lot of us do around here, that kind of stuff is, pretty standard fare. But we have not seen stuff like that for years. And when I was watching that, stuff that would have made me feel sort of more jaded about it, even during the primary, which we just didn't see it, because it was quite clear that everybody was making a pitch about people's families. I couldn't help but think, like, I bet you there's a lot of people out there who are pretty excited about a fairly banal politician who is making a pitch that he or she, but it's he in this case, is running to help your family. I have a feeling that during a time of a pandemic, during a time of a presidency where the guy is constantly talking about himself and how everything affects Trump, I have a feeling that probably resonated. And Joe Biden did see slight bump in the poll, the flash poll afterwards. Certainly all the polls had him, the snap polls had him winning the debate. I would imagine we're going to see, at the very least, the trend line continue. I don't think we're going to see any shrinkage from that, but we will know more on Monday. We'll see you then. And for those of you sticking around for the rest of the show, let's play a clip of this. Our next guest has a special that is playing. It is called An Evening with Tim Heidecker, and it is actually Tim Heidecker, who is it's his comedy special. Here is a trailer for that. This debuts tonight. Let's see this.
My name is Tim Heidecker. I'm a comedian. Are you happy? Are we happy to be here tonight? I don't know what's going to happen. I really don't. It's a blank slate in front of me. I'm Jake Nicholson. Finally got a chance to hear the music of Keith Urban. I thought to myself, gee, this This guy might want to change his name to Keith Rural. With Brussels sprouts and this and that, and turkey, not turkey, fuck. This is storytelling. This is Cosby comedy. It's going to require a little bit of your attention. You're like, mama, me, 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 mama, me, 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 me. Yeah! Thank you. Thank you. That's what you gotta do. That's what you gotta do.
All right. Well, let's bring to the show Tim Heidecker, whose Evening with Tim Heidecker debuts tonight. And he's also the host of Office Hours Live. Tim, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Sam. I just want to give you a heads up. I am, just for archival purposes and verification purposes, I am live streaming this interview right now on my YouTube channel. So if there's any discrepancies or confusion, or if there's anything you want to end up doing later, we have the record. We are live streaming now. So say hi to everybody on the Tim Heidecker YouTube stream.
So Tim, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. You know, we have an exciting big premiere tonight. One of my great stand-up specials. It's the first one, so hopefully it'll be the first of many, but we're premiering that tonight. Busy night for comedy with the Ali G movie coming out and everything, but you know.
Well, you know why you're feeling great is because this is how you're supposed to treat a guest when they come on a show. And you're supposed to make them feel comfortable and welcome. And I only say this because I went on your show, and within seconds, I did not feel great. And
no, you're still crying about that?
Well, I'm not crying about it.
You seem like you're really upset. I mean, it seems like you're literally seething with rage about this. Like,
I'm sorry if I appeared. It
was 2 minutes of your life that you came on my show, and I was happy to.
It was actually longer than 2 minutes.
Well, whatever it was, I was gracious enough to have you come on, and I thought we were going to have a spirited conversation about the state of journalism now. You dodged it left and right. You dodged it like I've never seen before. And you
wanted me to swear about Cuomo.
Yeah.
I guess the point is, I just wanted to show you this just to make you aware that you're feeling great. And that is because
I retract. I'm not feeling great, and you're not doing a good job. You're throwing me under the bus.
No, I'm not throwing you on the bus.
My audience is watching this. They're telling me they're saying to me right now that you're a bitter, spiteful, seething, angry guy who's trying to throw me under the bus. So whatever. I'm happy. I sleep well at night. I'm a happy guy, but not right now.
I'm sorry. I was just trying to point it out to you because I thought maybe since you've, recently got into this game of, as we call it, of streaming on YouTube, that maybe you'd want to know, how you can get guests to keep coming back on your show.
I had the President of the United States call into my show yesterday. I had the President of the United States call in.
You did.
And it was awesome. It was awesome.
You did. You had the President of the United States call in. You had Donald Trump call into your show.
I did. Look it up. It's right there on the stream. It was one of our biggest guests we've ever had. Actually,
I would imagine that probably would be one of the biggest guests that you've had. Tim, so let me ask you this. Tell us about your special. I noticed you're not wearing a mask.
I mean, we shot it before the Wuhan flu hit our country.
So it's taken a long time for it to come out.
Yeah, it did take a long time for it to come out. It's slice of life stuff, Sam. It's observational Cosby comedy. It's the stuff that I grew up on. It sort of reminds me, I was sort of one of the few people sort of happy to have the virus come and shut down all the live venues. I don't know about you, but I was so relieved because, every couple of years, I don't know if you've had this experience. You're a married man, correct?
No, not anymore.
Okay. Fair enough. All right.
I mean,
pretty public. So,
okay, but you were married and you understand the relationship. My wife, she would always say, "Oh boy, guess what's the Train? The band Train is coming to town, right? Remember the band Train?
No.
Pat Monahan, Train. They're a group in the '90s. You know, okay. Your audience, believe me, knows who they are.
Look that up.
Anyways, this is always a funny story to me. They say, she goes, "You're going down and we're going to see them this Friday. We're going to see them." And she'd go down to Ticketmaster. So I'd go down there and I'd go up there. I say, we like 2 train tickets. And they would say, "What do you think this is, an Amtrak station?" And that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
And Train.
That's good stuff.
What?
It's good stuff.
Thank you.
Well, all right. So
what do you think? What do you think we'll get out of the next debate, Sam? Were you guys talking about the debate? Do you think that there'll be any changes?
Eric.
What's that?
It happened. I'm sorry. Did I call you Eric? I got confused because you did a show,
that's
right?
That's disrespectful.
The debate happened last night, Tim.
Yes, I know the debate. I'm talking about the next debate. The debate. Assuming they're having another debate.
No, that was the last one. That was the last debate.
Oh, that's okay. I'm a little disappointed. Honestly, as an undecided voter, I'm still. I would like to hear like maybe one more, whatever it is, a half hour, maybe even another crack at the bat, so I can kind of absorb the message from the two of them, because I'm still kind of left with my hands up. I'm not really sure which way to go.
Who you going to vote for?
No clue.
No clue.
I'm lost. I like them both a lot.
Right.
You know?
Right.
It's one of those, like, I might just kind of toss a coin.
Tim.
Huh?
Who'd you vote for in 2016?
Paul, not Paul Ryan, Ron Paul.
Ron Paul.
Yeah.
2016.
I think so. Yeah.
I think he ran in 2012.
The libertarian.
Okay. Yeah. He didn't run in 2016.
I wrote him in. You're allowed to do that, by the way.
Now, why did you,
I'm a libertarian. I believe in the freedom of speech.
Why don't you write him in this time?
I might, but I like Joe Biden. I like his record. And I like Donald Trump. I think he's done a good job. So it's just tough. I'm sure a lot of people.
Yeah, it's going to be rough to still be weighing this out. And so your special, let's get back to that for just a moment, because I was looking at the thumbnail, and you're making all sorts of funny faces on it.
Thank you.
Kind of stuff that we can expect.
I mean, it's a lot of, we're kind of two insiders, you know. This isn't something I might say on Access Hollywood or you know, Entertainment Tonight or something. But
have you been in those places?
I will be most likely doing some kind of junket at some point. I'll be doing the rounds.
Do it before the thing debuts.
Yeah, we're working on that, but because of conflicts on their side, there's sort of things are up in the air. Right. You know, listen, there's just a lot of balls in the air. But what I like to do, and this is kind of, like I said, it's kind of two pros talking here. There's a lot of filler in it in a way, because I use crowd work. I use a lot. There's a lot of music, waiting. Like, you know, we kind of. There's a lot of filler in it, which is good, because filler is what often makes the best food, you know, the sort of.
Well, it also makes it a longer experience too, right?
Well, you have to fill out the hour, and it's not going to be me up there with a bunch of material and content. It's time killing. And a lot of that is facial expressions, holding things, doing things over and over again, and repetition. And also, you know, just focusing on my chunk. There's about 5 minutes of good stuff in the special. And that chunk has been so fine, refined over the years. It's been so almost perfected that you're seeing the best version of a 5-minute chunk.
And do you disperse that 5 minutes of good material over the course of the 60 minutes?
It exists in its chunk form in the 5 minutes, sort of towards the end. Yeah. And then we have filler.
That's one of the things I think you read about, where comedians, will say, like, I'm trying to get a laugh every 30 seconds, or I'm trying to get a laugh every 35 minutes or something like that. That seems more, you seem more along that pace, like a one joke.
That's like a difference between a sprinter or a marathon runner. Like, I'm just looking to complete the marathon. The point is finishing it. The point is doing the hour, getting to the end of the hour. Do you follow me?
Yes.
It's not necessarily about the work I do within the hour. It's about getting to the finish line.
Except for marathons are actually graded based upon how quickly they get through them. And you're trying to run it as basically.
The optimal time for me, if this was a marathon, which I could probably do, it would be an hour. So it's a similar experience for me on the stand-up specials. We have an hour. Let's try to fill it best of my abilities, get to that 5-minute chunk, and then get the hell out of there.
Why did it have to be an hour? It's on YouTube. It's not like you're doing it on commercial television.
Well, HBO was in the market for this, and then they require an hour, and they backed out pretty early. But I had already committed to paying the camera guys and everything for the time, so we just went through with it. But I would skip to the last 5 minutes. That's what's great about YouTube.
You can just scroll right through it.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that it is.
I mean, your show is for like 4 or 5 hours or something like that, right?
Well, it's
got to be a lot of filler.
Important stuff to talk about. Sometimes we have filler.
Every day there's something super important to talk about. Sure. I'm sure there's no filler.
Well, I think we're making the case that there's filler right now.
Okay, very good. Nice. That's nice. I love that. Bang. But believe me, I have you on tape right here. So, and I know what you're doing. You're cutting my mic and you're making me look like an idiot, but
we're live.
My audience will be able to see exactly what's going on. Well, so there's no worries there.
You did mention that your special is being released on perhaps one of the most anticipated nights of the comedy, I would say, of comedy, probably at least this year, right? I mean, Everybody is talking about Sacha Baron Cohen's premiere. And I honestly, I think this is probably the only time that somebody's talking about, not talking about it when talking about yours, like right now.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. Why is that?
Well, I mean, who did you not have people do you not have people who schedule these things, or is it just sort of happen?
Excuse me. You know what? Let me show you something, because you're wrong. And as usual, you're wrong. I have an article here. Tim Heidecker announces, I'm bringing it up. Hudson Valley 360 is the website. HudsonValley360.com. Tim Heidecker announces his first ever stand-up comedy special, An Evening with Tim Heidecker, premieres on October 23rd. Heidecker announces it first ever space, and then it goes on. It tells the whole story behind it. So there's press.
Yes, that is. I think that's from the Hudson Valley in New York, actually.
Yeah, that's a reputable source. There's another one here. Also, this is in my Google alerts. This is also coming in from Hudson Valley 360. Same article. So they sent me that twice. Google alerts.
Anything about any of the farmers markets that are happening this weekend as well?
I don't. I'm just looking at my coverage. There's a side thing. Prattsville candidates call for leadership.
Yeah.
And Taconic driving school to reopen in-person classes. Those are the other big stories right now. So,
all right. Well,
you'll see some other footage. You'll see some other coverage throughout the day. Believe me.
Okay. We got a question from the audience.
Okay.
Quinn from Indianapolis asked Tim why his pits sweat so much. Is he hiding something? How do folks gather that your pits sweat so much?
By seeing them.
Is that why you wear that T-shirt underneath there?
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah. I try my best, but I perspirate. I'm a man. I have a lot of testosterone surging through me, and I don't urinate normally. I don't urinate like a normal man. Urinate on a like a 7-day period every 7 days. So a lot of liquid is released from my body through my armpits, and the doctors say it's perfectly normal.
That sounds. I mean, sweating through your armpits sounds normal. The other stuff doesn't sound that normal.
Because Sam, so you don't perspirate.
I mean, no.
Because that shirt that you're wearing looks like it's ready to turn wet. Like it looks ready to turn wet. Like it could turn wet at any minute now. So we'll be watching that carefully.
I spilled something on it. It would. Let's just.
I want to have you on our show though. Again, I want to make it up to you. I'm gonna fly. I want to fly on a plane out to LA, put you up right here in the studio, the Office Hours studio. Will you accept or will you not?
Well, I would have to check my schedule and wait. I don't think I would want to go into. I mean, I know what you're alluding to.
I think we get you on a flight. It'll be a Frontier is the airline I work with, or Alliance, who are awesome, and we get you. There are not a ton of flights out of the New York area, so we'd have to figure out when that would be. But I know they have a 6 a.m. flight out of Newark that could get you here for the next day. And then there isn't a show. If we did that on like a Wednesday, they have 2 flights a week. So we'd do that on a Monday and get you out here for the Tuesday show and get you back Thursday or Friday.
So we can talk about that. Maybe, my people will look at my schedule and see about that. But I'm looking at your press release about your comedy special. And you mentioned this earlier, Cosby comedy, right?
Yeah.
You do Cosby comedy. Is that give me a sense of what that means? I mean, I don't know if you're aware of what happened
in prison for tax stuff or something. Was it tax stuff or I don't know?
It's more like a tax stuff, not
tax.
Right. Like I mean, he sexually assaulted women. He raped women, is my understanding. Yeah.
Nasty stuff. And he's a bad guy, but he's a great comedy. He's a great comedy mentor, and he's not. I separate the art from the artist.
Did he actually mentor you?
In terms of have I watched the Cosby Show? Yes. Have I watched Bill Cosby himself? Have I watched Kodak Presents Bill Cosby?
But that's not mentoring. That's inspiring you, or maybe influencing you.
It's linguistics.
Yeah, I mean, it's what words mean.
Thank you.
I mean, that's sort of what you're doing, right? With your comedy special, is you're trying to fashion words in such a way. So like the idea that people would have a common understanding of language is probably pretty important to what you do, right? Or no?
I like to think that there's a my freedom of speech is being attacked at this right now, and that's why I'm recording here live. My freedom of speech is I'm in a courtroom, the Sam Seder courtroom, and I'm being judged by judge, jury, and executioner by you, just because I mentioned that I liked one comedy guy who might have gotten himself in a little trouble, gotten himself in a little hot water. So this is the state of affairs right now. There's no way comedy cannot exist in this environment, and they're not letting comedians speak truth, and they're censoring. The censorship of comedians has never been, we've never seen anything like it before. And shame on you for being a part of the mob.
Will you walk us through what that this censorship means? I mean, because and we've talked about censorship in the past with comedians. It's like Lenny Bruce being arrested for saying some
there you go
words.
If Lenny Bruce was here today, believe me, he would not be allowed to say anything. He would have been so canceled by now.
What? Wait. Yeah, so this canceled is different from being arrested, right?
Right.
And
he probably would have been arrested for some of the things he says.
What? Like who's been arrested for stuff?
I mean, you name it. Bill Cosby.
Bill Cosby was not arrested for for things that he did in terms of his comedy.
I understand that, but he could have been, though. I mean, he certainly is in that position. Look at who's another one? There's another one that got just recently. I'm blanking on him.
Arrested.
A comedian got arrested for speaking honesty on stage. You got arrested, and a guy, we've never seen him again. He's often underground somewhere. I don't know what's going on with that. I can't remember his name. Chris D'Elia, not him.
Have you in any way?
I don't remember, but whatever. There's a lot of them. A lot of comedy guys are getting arrested for saying what they think.
Let me ask you, give me an example of how you've been censored.
Well, I can give an exaggeration or an example, a hypothetical, if you want. I could give you like this is gonna happen if you want.
Well, that's okay. Let's start with that. That would be interesting to hear.
So let's say I do the train chunk, which I just did for you guys out there. And then Joe Biden and whatever her name is, Harris, says, well, you can't be making fun of Amtrak because Amtrak is a government is a government agency. And we're going to, then you say, if you say that joke on stage, you're going to jail. I mean, that's sick. That's spooky.
That's an interesting hypothetical, but let me see if I could add to that hypothetical. I am also a famous charge rights attorney, and I step in and do pro bono work for you, and I fight that. And you're fine.
Well, it could game out that way, but I don't know.
Or maybe aliens come from outer space and are able to put some type of protective cone around you so that even though they try and take you off the stage, they can't, because they run into an invisible force field that they can't penetrate. They don't know what it is because it's from the aliens.
Right. Well, yeah, it's pretty creative, and you get a lot of mileage on your show by being, you've got producers in your ear telling you what to say and everything, and that's fine. But I'm by myself here, and I
am totally by myself here.
No, that's pathetic.
It is. It is
pathetic, Sam. And I have all sorts of people here. We're having a lot of good time, a lot of fun.
Well, this is really exciting for you.
I mean, it's hard because I'm always looking like, oh, should I say that? If I say this, if I say that, I'm going to get, sent into Guantanamo. I'm going to sent down as a political prisoner. But I still do it because what else can I do except speak truth? And I'm a truth teller, and you'll see it all tonight. And maybe tonight's special will air, and that's the last you'll ever see of me, and I'll get taken out.
What do you mean by air? It's gonna play on YouTube, right?
It's be just the way it's on Netflix. I say it's like a Netflix special. Same kind of cameras were used in the filming, and a lot of people think it's maybe a better special than it would have been if it was on Netflix. If it was on Netflix, it would have been canceled by now.
Was that video cameras? When you say the same kind of cameras, is that video?
They're Netflix cameras. They're the pro cameras. So
professional cameras.
There you go. And sound.
So is there a time that it's going to be on, or is it just sort of like show up whenever?
It's 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central Time. So that it'll premiere then, and then it'll be there, and it'll be available to anybody if you have a YouTube subscription or an account. They make it really easy. And aside from that, you have on YouTube all sorts of other things. You've got Jacques Pepin, cooking guy, has a thing going on YouTube. And I saw The Greatest American Hero. You remember The Greatest American Hero TV show? Old episodes of that are on. A lot of stuff on YouTube right now. It's actually a great venue, great platform for comedy and for entertainment.
Pretty hard to get your stuff on there, I guess.
In terms of upload, it's several hours for a high quality upload. Yeah. And it could fail. The upload could fail if you lose internet connection. There's a lot of obstacles along the way.
I would imagine fiber. You need a fiber connection. So
anything else?
I think that's probably it. But I hope this has been, a better experience for you than frankly I had on your show.
Oh, I'm sorry. What do you mean to send you like a fruit basket? I'll send you a fruit basket, Sam.
Well,
I'll send you an edible arrangements. That's actually.
A lot of people actually do stuff like that when they want to say they're sorry.
Let me say I'm so sorry that you had a bad time on my show.
Well, it wasn't just I had a bad time. I was given a hard time, and I didn't appreciate that. But I understand this is
Cry more.
New for you, and you're doing your best. So
cry more. Thanks,
keep up
Sam.
the good work on that office hours live. So thank you, Tim Heidecker.
Steven Spielberg's calling, by the way, because it's an infringement of copyright, The Majority Report. There's already a movie called The Majority Report that he made with Tom Cruise. Look it up. You're in trouble. Big trouble, actually, and I'm going to be the one to push for that. Thanks, Sam. Good luck. Have a good weekend.
Philip K. Dick novel that it was about.
Goodbye. And bye, everybody.
Okay, and there you go. I see he's stolen my content, too. I'm sorry about that, folks. I'm sorry about it. I don't know.
Try to extend a peace offering, and
yeah, that was. I was hoping that Tim would get it and understand how you're supposed to treat guests when they come on the show, but apparently he doesn't get it.
A real race to the bottom for the Tims and the Majority Report.
Totally. All right. Well, listen, we're going to go to the fun half, and we're going to have those guys on from Man Card, right? Luke, is it Lucas and Peter? Who are we going to have on from them?
That's right. Both of them.
Both of them are going to come on? Okay. All right. Well, let's take a quick break and head into the fun half, and then we will talk to those guys. This is folks also on YouTube. I think it is, right? Man Card. It is a documentary, and I don't know that much about it, to be honest with you, but Matthew Film Guy said it's worth us checking out, and that's all it takes for me. If Matthew Film Guy says it's good, then it's good. But it's an interesting film about well, they'll tell us, but it has to do with the folks that Donald Trump appeals to, and we got a lot of people IMing. I haven't even turned on the IM. I just that who are really put off by Tim Heidecker, and I can't say I totally blame them. That was pretty disturbing. All right, folks, just a reminder, it's your support that makes this show possible. You can become a member at jointhemajorityreport.com. When you do, you support the free show and you get extra content just about every single day. That's pretty good stuff. Also, don't forget, check out Nomi's show today at 3 p.m., the Nomiki Show on YouTube, or you can find it on patreon.com. I don't know who's going to be on today. And also, don't forget, check out the Intifada. Jamie's got new content up at patreon.com/the Intifada. Matt, what's happening on TMBS this past week?
Oh, this weekend, Alicia Brooks is going to be talking to Drew Mikhael for patrons. So people should check that out at patreon.com/TMBS.
Great. And we will see you in the fun half. Left is best. Jamie and I may have a disagreement.
Yeah, you can't just say whatever you want about people just because you're rich.
I have an absolute right to mock them on YouTube.
He's up there buggy whipping like he's the boss.
I am not your employer.
You know, I'm tired of the negativity.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to upset you. You're nervous. You're a little bit upset. You're riled up.
Yeah, maybe you should rethink your defense of that, you fucking idiots.
We're just going to get rid of you.
All right.
But dude. You want to smoke this joint?
Yes.
Do you feel like you are a dinosaur?
Some good shit.
Exactly. I'm happy now.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win-win.
Oh, hell yeah.
Now listen to me. 2, 3, 4, 5 times. 847-906-501-457. 2, 38, 56, 27. 1/2. 5 8s. 3.9 billion.
Wow.
He's the ultimate math nerd.
Don't you see?
Why don't you get a real job instead of spewing vitriol and hatred, you left-wing Limbaugh?
Everybody's taking their dumb juice today.
Come on, Sammy!
Dance, dance, dance.
Rand Paul.
I had my first post-coital scene with a woman. I'm hoping to add more moves to my repertoire. All I have is the dip and the swirl.
Fine, we can double dip.
Yes, this is a perfect moment.
No.
Wait, what?
You make under $1 million a year. You're scum. You're nothing.
Excuse me? Fuck you, you fucking liberal elite. I think you belong in jail.
Thank you for saying that, Sam. You're a horrible, despicable person.
All right, gonna take a quick break. I want to take a moment to talk to some of the libertarians out there. Take whatever vehicle you want to drive to the library. What you're talking about is jibber jabber.
Classic. I'm feeling more chill already.
Good. Donald Trump can kiss all of our asses.
Hey, Sam. Hey, Andy. You guys ready to do some evil?
Hitler was such an idiot.
That guy might be a Nazi.
Agree.
No.
Death to America.
Do.
Yes.
Wow.
Wow, that's weird. No way. Unbelievable. This guy's got a really good hook. Throw our hands up. Ooh. Wow.
But Sam, I gotta get off.
No worries. Let's. I want to just flesh this out a little bit. I mean, look, it's a free speech issue. If you don't like me,
Hey, shut up!
Thank you for calling into the Majority Report. Sam will be with you shortly.
we're back. It's the fun half, ladies and gentlemen. Let's let us. Here's this is a little bit disturbing. We have a massive spike in COVID in North Dakota, correct, Matt?
Yes, I believe, Justin, for population size, it would be one of the worst in the world, actually.
In the world. Well, maybe this is part of the problem. Here is mayor of your hometown. Is that right, Matt?
Yep, Mandan, North Dakota.
In Mandan, North Dakota. And here he is, Tim Helbling. He is the mayor of Mandan City. And here he is. He's concerned about the idea of masks.
Overreach, and we can have a mask mandate, but what's next? Are we going to close every chocolate chip cookie place? Anybody who sells chocolate chip cookies, because it explodes. Where does it stop and where does it start? And I'm afraid that once it starts, it's not going to stop. Back to government.
So, Matt, explain to me what he's talking about. He's saying that if you have a mask mandate, there's no limiting principle, and soon you won't be able to sell cookies?
Well, yeah, obviously, you'd have to shut down all of Mandan's chocolate chip cookie places.
Is Mandan known specifically for chocolate chip cookies?
I don't remember a single specific cookie place growing up. So if there is one, it's new. I mean, there's several bakeries. I did some research, and they don't emphasize their cookies to any extent.
But you know what's amazing about this is that the fact that he can't even come up with a hypothetical next step after the masks. Like if you enforce a mask mandate, what's next? And then he come up with like the closed cookies. Like maybe that's an indication that there is no next thing. It is just that the masks is, cut down on the transmission of the virus.
The Trump era gave a lot of people license to, be as hyperbolic as him, and no one can deliver in that way.
I mean, that is the thing that is so how does this go away? If Donald Trump goes away, does this like sort of level of ignorance go away?
This is just like standard libertarianism. This is what the Libertarian Party is for. It's to basically let these guys feel comfortable speaking in this much ignorance, I think.
Yeah, it's a little bit scary. Where's Jamie? She's in the waiting room. Let's bring her in.
I didn't know if we had the documentary guests for a third interview.
In 8 minutes, but that's okay. She can come in and go back out and then come back in. And we had that Tim Heidecker on. It really messed up everything. Hi, Jamie. Did you see Tim Heidecker?
Hey, yeah. No, it was, not the best interview we've ever had on the show, but it was okay. I enjoyed it.
Well,
somewhat.
Here is let's talk a little bit about Rick Santorum, who was on after the debate last night on CNN. And Rick Santorum apparently did not pay attention to Donald Trump before he was the leader of the Republican Party. And here he is claiming something that even like the slightest sort of Google search would tell you otherwise. Rick Santorum.
They just called the other candidate a racist, and it's not out of the ordinary.
So you can make the argument, Gloria. You can make the argument, Gloria, that Joe Biden got in the gutter and Donald Trump didn't in this
Well,
race.
no, I won't make that argument. I won't make that argument
because I think he did.
I won't make that argument because I think that
you think it's true. I don't think it's true.
There are reasons to believe that it is true.
Nobody called Donald Trump a racist before he was president of the United States.
And Donald Trump. And
that's not true.
Other than the Central Park thing, but Donald Trump.
Wait a minute. Other than the Central Park thing, the Central Park thing actually was 5 human beings' lives who were sent to prison, convicted for crimes that they did not commit, and he refuses. I mean, you know that, right?
And also he says, justice reform. Oh, I really wanted that. Well, talk to Van Jones about how they had to talk this president into that kind of reform that he went into, just kicking and screaming,
Rick. Well, it's not just that he took out a full-page ad in New York papers, basically calling, I think, for the death penalty for these 5 who were then teens who were coerced into. Here it is. These 5 teenagers who were coerced into admitting to a crime that they had no involvement with. He also, in the early 70s, I think it was 2 Department of Justice consent decrees, because the first one he breached, involving their refusal to rent out some of their real estate, their apartments, to Black people. You had, those are just, it's not everybody that has the Department of Justice basically say that you're acting like a racist. That's a pretty dramatic, I think, thing to do. And of course, Donald Trump has said all sorts of racist things since then. I mean, the idea that nobody thought he was racist before is just simply Rick Santorum not being aware of what was going on in the, with Donald Trump.
Or willfully obfuscating it.
Yes. I mean, it's Rick Santorum. This is not a bastion of integrity. He also said, I think at one point, like Boston was a sexually, like there was a lot of sexual proclivity there. That's why there was the priest scandal with molestation back in the day.
I just can't believe that Rick Santorum still has a career and gets to use that name and go on television.
Yeah. It's pretty impressive, actually.
He's actually outlived the Dan Savage, thing of his name.
Has he?
I think he has. I
don't know. I mean, maybe it's just people exactly my age, but I knew about the Dan Savage definition of Santorum before I had any idea who Rick Santorum actually was.
I do think it's past. Welcome to the olds, Jamie. We're all there.
Not if I have anything to say about it.
Here is here's Glenn Beck talking about that he doesn't need people pulling on his heartstrings about the idea of over 500 children still. We are talking now, this is years later, separated from their parents, essentially kidnapped, stolen from their parents. And we can't reunite them. And it's not even the U.S. government that seems to be working on this. It seems to be lawyers for working on behalf of the children. We cannot find their parents. Listen to Glenn Beck. This is sociopathic.
I think the Blaze is the only group that actually went to DHS and asked them for a statement on these missing children story. Okay, because that doesn't make sense. These children, where are the parents? Mm-hmm. If you left your kid, either one of you had the government of Mexico, you were crossing, and the government of Mexico had your kid for 2 years or whatever it is, where would you be?
I would not turn around and go home and forget about it.
Right?
Yeah, you'd be standing outside of whatever facility the kid was in.
Banging down the doors.
And you would find every parent that you knew of these 500, and you would try to get international press because they would listen to you. So it didn't feel right to us. Right. So the Blaze asked Chase Jennings from the Department of Homeland Security. This is the response from official Homeland Security. This narrative has been dispelled on numerous occasions. DHS has taken every step to facilitate the reunification of these families where the parents wanted such reunification to occur. The simple fact is, after contact was made with the parents to reunite them with their children, many parents have refused. In the current litigation, for example, out of the parents of 485 children whom plaintiff's counsel have been able to contact, they have yet to identify a single family that wants their child reunited with them in their country. The result is the children remain in the U.S. while the parents remain in their home country. The reunification process is a whole of government approach involving CBP, ICE, and HHS. Mm-hmm. What kind of parent? Don't play on my heartstrings about these poor parents that haven't been united with their children and the children that haven't been reunited. What parent allows a child to stay in government custody instead of coming home?
First off, these many of these parents, if not all of them, have been deported from the country or they cannot be found by our government. To the extent that any parents doesn't want their kids with them, it is probably because of the reason they left in the first place. Which was because they're living in either one of the most dangerous places in the world in terms of like rated by murder and by gangs and that the kids have been threatened or whatnot. Or it's also possible that these Department of Homeland Security officials who lied about this entire episode continue to lie. They never determined a way to reunite these families. You notice they say the plaintiffs. They're not the plaintiffs, the DHS. The fact that they're having to be sued is indicative of the fact that DHS is not doing anything in this regard. It's just unconscionable. And you notice that Beck is just focusing on the parents, doesn't care what the kids are feeling. It's just that the parents are bad parents. Therefore, the kids need to suffer, according to him. It really is shocking.
I don't know where he's even getting this information from, but every mainstream news source that I've read about it said there are at least 500 kids, 500 instances where they could not find the parents, probably because they were deported. And what are they doing about it? Nothing. They're like, we're working on it. The lawyers are certainly working on it, but it's horrific to think that they made over 500 orphans as a punishment, and there might not be anything that anyone can do about it. Like, that's permanent.
It's shocking. All right, let's we've got two special guests that we want to bring in here, and folks have got to watch this film before the election. I think it's something. It's a fascinating topic because I don't think these people are going to go away. But let's play a clip first off of their film, and it's called Man Card, and it was made by Lucas Sabin and Peter Hutch. Here is the trailer. Play this, Brendan.
This is a nation of laws, and as Abraham Lincoln has said, no one is above the law, no one is below the law, and we're going to enforce the law, and Americans should remember that if we're going to have law and order.
I am sick and tired of the argument about whether some effort to enforce law and order is going to escalate anything at all. Plain truth of the matter is this has to stop, and it has to stop like the day before yesterday.
Put 100,000 new police officers on the streets of American cities.
Anything that is actually masculine anymore is now a stick to be beaten.
Real men do not suck at the teat of big government.
The left has culturally tried to feminize this country in a way that is disgusting.
I'm going to bomb the shit out of them.
Bye. Go home to mommy. Go home to mommy.
And you see blue-collar voters, men. This is like their last vestige, their last hope is Donald Trump to get their masculinity back.
The crime and violence that today afflicts our nation will soon come to an end. We will be a country of law and order.
So here we have Peter Hutchinson and Lucas Sabin. Oh, you got a Majority Report sweatshirt on.
It was my birthday present this year, a couple of months ago. So I figured this is my shot.
Fantastic. I should have.
Sam, I'll have you know he's very proud of that sweatshirt.
Oh well, I'm really. I thank you for wearing it. That's very exciting. So, film guy Matthew reached out and said you got to check this out. Of course, he did it yesterday, and you guys rolling this film out. It looks fascinating. Lucas, let's start with you since you're wearing a sweatshirt. This notion. I mean, one of the things, to the extent that Donald Trump has driven out any voters, new voters in this election, it is white men, non-college educated, in some of these Rust Belt states. The registration is up on Democrats. What is that? This is the cohort that you guys are talking about, right? And it's like it's not just these people. It's almost a. I mean, how would you describe it? It's not an ideology, but it is a sort of like a mode of thought.
Yeah. First off, I will say that this film was created by Jackson Katz, and he wrote a book called Man Enough. And so over the summer, we collaborated with him and the Media Education Foundation to make this film, and we were, really pushing to get it out before the election because we felt like it was a great film to kind of start a discussion. I think it's so easy for us to kind of get locked into certain ways of talking about things that at least here you have an hour that, traces 50 years of the rightward swing in our country, but, mostly done by the Republican Party. And, and I know, Sam, I watch the show almost every day. You talk a lot about how Donald Trump didn't come out of nowhere, and I think that that's what this film is trying to show. Now, as far as the voters go, Trump won, I think, the biggest margin ever since 1980 polling with high school educated white men. Right, it was a huge gap, like 48% gap, and with college educated men was, I think, 15 or 16 points. And from the recent Biden polling stuff I've seen, obviously he's been doing really great with white suburban women, but that gap is narrowing dramatically. And and I think if we see a Biden victory, a week from Tuesday, it'll be really interesting to see how this dynamic played out. So that's what I would say.
All right. Well, so Peter, tell us just a little bit about tell us a little bit about this sort of, I guess, mode of thought, like this sort of this idea of, I guess, sort of white male identity politics on some level.
I think the film looks at it in terms of a dynamic that the GOP sort of started to harness to their own ends as far back as Nixon, when it was all, a lot of it had to do, the hard hat riots were a pivotal moment back in the 60s with Nixon and how they started to look at the electorate. And as we explain in the film, Nixon knew that he couldn't promise working men better jobs, better health care, better life, but he could give them cultural recognition. He could underscore the importance of the white working man as the backbone of this country, and he could basically raise their profile as being sort of, the heart and soul of our nation. So he may have not been able to give them anything material, but he knew that there was a way to appeal to this psychological need and yearning for to feel good about yourself as a man. And the GOP has done a just really tremendous job of really harnessing this power for 5 decades, and you can see them return to this time and time again. It's really not rocket science. As you watch these 5 decades unfold in the film, it actually becomes quite predictable and redundant what these candidates are going to say.
Lucas, is that? This was an opportunity for the Republicans, I guess, that was a function of essentially the emancipatory movement for women in this country, and to the extent that the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act brought about at least some measure of equity in our society, or at least started to have institutional support for that. Let's say that's what this is, right? It's an aggrievement that comes from the perceived loss of status that comes with other people gaining more status. This is sort of my zero sum thing, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And I think you saw it, rear its ugly head in the kind of the backlash to Obama in 2008. Because I think he represented, obviously he was our first African American president, but he also represented a different kind of masculinity. Remember when after one of the shootings, when he was on TV and he openly cried, right? That's unfathomable for the vast majority of Republicans. Just that you played the Rush Limbaugh moment the other day, where he's finally had a little bit of an emotional moment around the fact that he's staring death in the face, and then Mark Savage goes after him for being a wimp. It's just, they keep doubling down on this philosophy, I think, really until it's completely broken, and hopefully that's what we're seeing, is that we have seen enough of modeling of a different kind of behavior by men that this is just a completely losing ideology.
I Limbaugh participated mightily in the notion of the feminization.
That's right, and he's actually a big part of the film. We spend, certainly a moment of when he first came to the rise, and then he's a little bit of a thread throughout the film. It's like it's just like things kind of keep getting added on top over the years, and then Trump just makes it all so much more explicit. Instead of them like kind of using dog whistle law and order, like Trump just like tweets out law and order. He's
not been very good about doing anything other than the subtext.
Exactly. It's like he gets his 3 speaking points and he just like reads the speaking points without putting any degree of subtlety around it,
Yes. I mean, it's like when he came out and said like suburban women, like they, I'm not supposed to say that we slice up the demographics this way.
It's almost like he's only reading the headlines and the memos that he's been handed to him in terms of talking points.
There's no sort of like nuance built around it or any type of like packaging. But Peter, let me ask you this. If it is the case that when Nixon pursued the strategy, and part of it was a function, if I'm not mistaken, Patrick Buchanan saying, look, we're going to splice the country in half, and it's going to be centered around these themes on some level, right? Like real Americans are essentially either white men or extensions of white men in some fashion. They weren't that explicit with it. We're going to cut the country in half and we'll have the bigger half. It feels like the strategy that Trump is pursuing is the exact same strategy. However, it's not the bigger half anymore. And
That's
so
right.
you need to depress the vote and all these other things.
Right. That's
so
right.
with that premise, what is the future? Is it as Lucas says, like we're modeling a different perspective on how men, white men function in our society? Or is it we're also, maybe it's not and or, waiting for that cohort to essentially die? I mean,
well, I don't think it's an either or, and I think it's a complicated scenario. I think Lucas is like, hey, I think they're just going to drive this model and this dynamic into the ground until it's broken. But I think to your point, it's the shifting demographic that's going to make a huge difference here. I mean, the voting power of the American white male it's diminishing, with each year. And also, I have another film that Lucas and I collaborated on that's out on a virtual screening tour right now as well, which is called Healing from Hate, Battle for the Soul of a Nation. I worked for several years with these ex-neo-Nazis and skinheads who now help people get out of hate groups. And it's a real deep dive into sort of the core issues around masculinity that drive these sorts of things. So I think it's incredibly nuanced and complicated. I think my fear is that the more that demographic shrinks, that the more disempowered those white men are going to feel, and the more extreme their behaviors will be in response.
Getting into the white knuckle territory, where they're
absolutely
hanging on to that, and it's the last vestige of this, and it's
right.
Alamo.
Right. It's the Alamo. I was going to say that's right. It's their Alamo, and they're not going to go quietly. And I think that's for me that's the danger here. That's the worst case scenario, and I think that's why these conversations around masculinity and where we're heading with masculinity and how we define masculinity are so crucial right now.
Well,
and I would also say that this, Peter and I have been kind of on like a 4-year journey with this. We started out making this film, Healing from Hate, which is making the tour now, and which is based on the sociologist Michael Kimmel's work. He wrote a book called Angry White Men, I think in 2012. And we had so much material when we were making that film that we splintered off a half-hour film called Angry White Men, Masculinity in the Age of Trump, which is, you can see on iTunes. And it gets more into those issues around, well, what do you do? Like, what are the next four, like, let's say Biden wins And, how do we address this issue? It's if we just, stiff arm the issue, we're going to, as Peter pointed out, it's just going to be that much worse in 4 years. So, obviously one of the models would be like the New Deal kind of thing where, there's such a vast infrastructure rehaul that needs to be done in this country that, putting people to work and giving people a sense of worth through their jobs, that you can make, that you can support your family by working a normal, 40-hour week and have healthcare and send your kid to college. And that's just not possible anymore. And so the discrepancy of what you were told to be as a man, from your dad and your grandpa, which is, you bring home the bacon and you provide, men can't do that anymore. And so you have this gap of what you've been told and what the reality of your life is. And then what are you going to do? Where are you going to point the finger? Global capitalism, or the guy down the street who you perceive took your job,
This was where was the next question, was that relationship between material deprivation and this identity. And that seems to be the sort of the nub of it on some level, is that men in our society have been raised traditionally, and society has put these expectations on them that may be different than for women, and expectations of white men. I'm not justifying this at all. I want people to understand that, but society has imposed certain expectations on white men. Look at all the, white men, I got the inside track to be president. And, it creates certain expectations that if our society is, and even if it's preventing other people from rising up, the expectations that you have internalized become more problematic. And the suggestion is, did you guys find evidence in the course of this film and in making the other ones that those material benefits can alleviate that sense of failure that may be coming out?
100%. I think the analogy that I would hear time and time again is what's the most common sort of expectation around being a white man in America? It's to be the breadwinner. It's to be able to provide for your family. That's sort of at the core of, masculinity, is your responsibility and ability to provide for your family. And, a lot of these guys, and I'm going to reference these guys who end up in hate groups, but I think one of the things that, Michael Kimmel likes to frame these through is, one of the ways to understand what's happening in the center is to take a look at what's happening on the extremes. And that will give you some really kind of key insights into, what's going to drive the middle as well, right? And a lot of what drives these guys into these hate group affiliations is it's not just the material deprivation, but it's also these issues around trauma and shame and identity and this need for belonging and this need for power and this need for meaning. And they're all tied together, and so for me, it even goes deeper than just pure materialism. It also has to do with, our health system and the access to mental health services that people need, because, these affiliations in these hate groups, it's often there to, it's compensatory. It's there as this temporary, boost to compensate for this these feelings of inadequacy and these feelings around deprivation.
Can I jump in here for a second? How Peter just described, studying the extremes, and we just had a screening of our latest film, which is a work in progress screening that we just had in Arkansas for a film called Devil Put the Coal in the Ground, which is a film about West Virginia. And what we were trying to do in that film is tie together these different aspects of environmental destruction and the opioid crisis and how those things are related. They don't live in these, siloed worlds. Right. And so, in West Virginia, those problems are really kind of easier to see because they only have one industry, pretty much the coal industry that, has been declining over these years. So the issues that are kind of going to be facing the rest of the country are really a bellwether in that state, and so
in the coal mine, as it were.
Canary in the coal mine. That's right.
We didn't want to use that as the title, but
All right. Well, guys, where can people see this film and your other works?
So the Man Card is streaming for free through Election Day, and you can go to themancardmovie.com. And that's where we'll have updates around the movie and such. And I will also plug, Jackson Katz, just the lead article on Ms. Magazine right now does a deeper dive into that film. So I would encourage viewers to go check that out. Healing from Hate is at healingfromhatefilm.com, I believe. And that has all kinds of virtual screenings. I live up in Dutchess County and we're having a screening on Tuesday outdoors, So check that out. There's
if you're in Portland, we have a screening coming up that is being hosted by the Oregon Coalition Against Hate Crimes. Beacon Film Society is sponsoring a screening this upcoming week up in Beacon, New York. Glimmerglass Film Days in November. We're looking to have upwards of 100 screenings by the holidays. So if you go to the website, you can see the screening updates.
Great. All right. Well, we'll put links to all those sites in our podcast and YouTube description today. Lucas Saban and Peter Hutchinson, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having us, Sam. It's awesome.
All right. Oh, what just happened there? Jamie's going to come back. Here is Greg Gutfeld from the Fox, the 5, basically already seeing past the Donald Trump presidency. I think we're going to see, the way these guys are going to pivot, it's going to be so quick. And it really is, the Senate is going to be hugely important for a functional Biden presidency. But here's Greg Gutfeld giving Republicans a primer on what they should do after inauguration. This is the era we're in, folks.
The first guy there. He was the first guy to say there was something up. He took the nuclear threat of North Korea off the map. ISIS, we don't hear about ISIS. They will be back. But he went after him hard. So this is an interesting thing, that his greatest achievement of the last 4 years has effectively removed that issue from the table. So now we're all talking about our words, 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 as opposed to Joe Biden's deeds. There's a foreign policy issue we should discuss. He has compromised himself, and to Jesse's point, if he actually wins, impeachment proceedings start the day after inauguration. And I don't think the Democrats are going to mind because they have Kamala Harris. Yep.
All right, we have a lot more to come.
I spoke to Digby on Ring of Fire this week, and she has a piece at salon.com right now, Heather Parton, that this whole Hunter Biden thing is a twofer. It is ostensibly for the election, but it's also essentially the way that they're going to go after Joe Biden. The Joe Biden presidency is they're good. This is their Benghazi. It is impressive, their ability to sort of generate these type of scandals when Donald Trump, by any possible measure, was the most scandal-ridden president I think we've ever seen, to the point where it was almost impossible to focus on one. And Republicans are just much, much better at this stuff in terms of like creating these narratives and marching in lockstep in pursuit of them. I mean, can you imagine what the Republicans could have done? I mean, I guess Obama said this the other day when he was campaigning. Had he had a Chinese bank account, they would be calling him Beijing Barry. They would be much better at this. Much better.
Well, at the end of the day, it's about power, right? And they're going to do this if they have the power to do it.
That's right. I mean, the real question is going to be, is there an opportunity for, if the Democrats, obviously, I think they're going to hold the House, but they take the Senate, then it's just going to be, essentially those Jacob Wall and Jack, whatever that guy's name is, press conferences about this stuff. And that's about it. Let's see. Should we take a? We're just not going to have time for phone calls today. I'm sorry, folks. I know people were counting on it, but I apologize. Just these crazy times these days, and let's go to some IMs here. Krogdactyl, Thug Love Homeboy, Undecided Decker. Does the Nomiki Show have a podcast? Can't YouTube at work, but would love to listen. That's a good question. I don't think they put it out as an audio version. Joel, hey, Sam, I think maybe Tim just doesn't know how to be a good guest. Maybe if you went on his show again, you could show him how to be a good guest. That's a good idea. Majority Report, Zach, I kind of wish you asked Ryan about what the F is going on at the Intercept, starting with Grimm's clearly false Reed story, continuing with Greenwald carrying water for Tucker Carlson, Fox News about the Russia stuff, to Ryan Grimm pushing a state rep candidate after a story came out about him beating his girlfriends. It's clear to me the Intercept is trying to get into the rising grift. No, I mean, I think the Tara Reid story needed to be aired, to some degree. I don't know how much they were pushing it. And I think they needed to do a little more work on that other candidate, the Tucker Carlson stuff, I don't think has anything to do with the Intercept per se. It has to do more with just, I think Greenwald's agenda. But Social Jewish Warrior, when Sam has his next libertarian debate, I hope he tells the caller at the end of the debate, this was the greatest debates that he's participated in, and thank him for his leadership. Maybe Sam can even give the caller a hug. Perhaps this is the best strategy for Tim Pool. South Dakota Progressive. I heard this over and over again. They talk like there's only two choices, are full of 100% lockdown or everything open as normal. No middle ground is considered. Well, that is the problem that we have in this country. There was this statement that was put on, it was put out by these, I can't remember where they were located. I think it was somewhere they met recently. I don't know if it was in Vermont or what. And they put out some statement. And, some of the scientists were, I think, sort of somewhat legit. And they put out a statement that is like, we don't need to lock down if we do X, Y, and Z. But the problem is that this country is not doing X, Y, and Z. Because in part because of obviously how polarized things have become, but in part because, you had the president of the United States and you had one of the major, it was the Great Barrington Mass. The town disowned the study and told them to rename it. It wasn't really a study. It was just a treatise, if you will, a manifesto. And it was, saying that we don't need to lock down if we take steps to be careful, is my understanding. But the problem is that we're not taking steps to be careful. That's the problem. I mean, if you look at New York City, in the areas where people didn't take it seriously for whatever reason, you get these spikes and then they have to shut everything down and then it calms down again. And that's just, we're going to have to do a series of these over time. And we're going to have to wait until we get to some type of actually decent rapid testing regime and some ability to contact trace. And then hopefully some type of vaccine, better therapies for it, so it's widely distributed. But in the meantime, people have to maintain social distance and wear masks and be careful about going into inside spaces unless they are like particularly set up for, people to be inside them. And the problem is when you don't do that, then you got to go and lock down. That's the whole complaint, right? It's just that we're not sequencing these things. I don't think you can have, 100% capacity restaurants. I'm not even sure you can have 25% capacity restaurants like we do in New York once things get colder. Right now you're going into these restaurants, for the most part, they are outside seating. And to the extent that they're inside, you got all the doors open, you got all the windows open, and bars, similarly situated. Once things get cold, I don't think this is going to be sustainable. And you need, and Joe Biden was pretty good about this last night, I have to say. He said, we need to provide money to people. Like, he made some type of very subtle pivot last night. And it was about, we need to pay money to build infrastructure for, in terms of addressing climate change. And he also said that we need to provide money to people, cities and states, to convince them, to make it easier for them to not go into work, to save these businesses. And that was pretty encouraging. I mean, it got lost a little bit in the, in the whole thing, but it was good to hear him say that. I'm not convinced that he will be, pushing as far as I want necessarily, but it is better to have an argument about how much are we going to spend rather than whether we need to go to austerity. And then it becomes just, like, how much can you convince them that we need to hit a certain number of spending? So,
yeah, I mean, I'm glad that he made some gesture towards that. I felt like he could have hammered it on it harder, because how could it not be popular to say, hey, we need to pay people to stay home so that we defeat this virus and also don't destroy the economy?
I mean, I think there's a segment of the population, a significant one, that is like, pay people to not to work. It's disgusting, right? I mean, we certainly see that pitched around, but it doesn't it's sort of, there's a certain sort of binary quality to, like, either you're going to position yourself for austerity or you're going to position yourself to have government expenditure, right? And then once you position yourself there, then it becomes a negotiation. And then we're in a position to negotiate. Yeah. And because, for the most part, it's just words, right? I mean, how do you measure what degree he's talking about? It's like either we need to be careful or we need to spend to help people. Those are the two sort of choices you have in that moment.
Well, it does seem like he's trying to stake out a middle path in between those two things, right? Because I've also read news stories saying that the Biden administration is getting ready for austerity. So
that's what I'm saying. That's what they were talking about a month or two ago. And it feels like, at least publicly, they're coming out and, and being a little bit, there's an absence of austerity, and why do that publicly? If you're, why go out there and say that you're going to be a profligate spender if you're not going to be? Because
people say all kinds of stuff to get people to vote for them.
I know it, but then you're also constrained on the other side. I mean, why start? It's not necessarily, amongst this class of people, it's not widely understood that going and promising a huge stimulus is necessarily going to be a popular thing to do. They're usually of the mind that there's fiscal discipline. We need to show fiscal discipline. But so it's helpful. It doesn't guarantee anything. It's just words in that respect, but it's, I would rather hear those words than other ones.
Yeah. I guess we'll see.
Well, I hope we're in a position to be able to see. Here is Donald Trump. This is both inoffensive and a fabrication. Donald Trump talking about immigrants, saying catch and release was the worst thing ever. The facts are, here, let's play this clip. Play the clip.
Shows that he has no understanding of immigration or the laws. Catch and release is a disaster. A murderer would come in, a rapist would come in, a very bad person would come in. We would take their name. We have to release them into our country. And then you say they come back. Less than 1% of the people come back. We have to send ICE out and Border Patrol out to find them. We would say, come back in 2 years, 3 years. We're going to give you a court case. You need Perry Mason. We're going to give you a court case. When you say they come back, they don't come back, Joe. They never come back. Only the really, I hate to say this, but those with the lowest IQ, they might come back.
Okay, President Trump, let's give Vice President Biden a chance to respond, and then we're going to move on to the next section. You don't know the law, Joe. Vice President.
The fact of the matter is that over 85% of these people have come back, and those people who had an opportunity to get a lawyer or were assigned a lawyer, the number's like even higher. It's like 96%, 97% come back to court for their hearing. So he's lying. And then just started dropping in the, low IQ immigrants are the only ones who obey the law, which is also an insight into his mentality, right? Like, you're stupid if you follow the law.
It's 100% projection.
It's 100% projection. And what it also does is it basically implies that their claims are disingenuous, that they're not seeking refuge because of problems in their home country, but that they're trying to get one over on us in our country. And of course, yes, 100% projection. That's exactly how he operates. Now, Joe Biden should know that figure, although he says, the majority of them come back. People respond better when you have a hard number. And I think the hard number is 86%. Would return, and 96% are for those who had an attorney, in which case suggests that the people who had the attorney were notified of it or understood the process. It's no doubt that if only 14% of people are not showing up for their court date, a certain percentage of them are just like, I'm not sure exactly how this works. What's going to happen there? I'm afraid to go because I don't understand what it is. I'm not sure when the dates are. Maybe I didn't get the appointment. I didn't remember, whatever it is. And so that's the reality of it. And that's the way you have immigrants in your system so you can understand what's going on. And it's also, again, just a reminder for people, the reason why you don't want a situation where, like, first responders, for instance, report to immigration services, is because you don't want there to be large cohorts of our society who are afraid of people like first responders, because then bad things happen, because these people they're working with us, they're driving with us, they're shopping with us, and if they are aware of something happening, you don't want them to be afraid to, there's a fire. I'm afraid to call the fire department because I don't want to be deported. I see a crime going. I'm afraid to call the police because I don't want to be deported. There's a gas main leak, whatever it is. You just don't want people to be afraid to report. And so you want to bring them into the system, and you want the system to be fair. And ultimately, I think, Biden was like, I want to put a path to citizenship for all these people. And that's good. I mean, I think that the politics of this have changed. And I think the Democrats are going to be more aggressive than they have ever been in the past because of how polarized the issue has become and how people have associated it with being pro-immigrant is anti-Trump. I think that's going to be a good thing. And hopefully it's capitalized on before, we forget this stuff as a society.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope everybody who took an interest in this issue because Trump was so egregious about it doesn't lose interest after Trump is gone, because these problems are not going away unless we do something about them.
Guaranteed percentage of people will. But I don't know. I hope it's not that large. I mean, that's just the nature of this, of this, there'll be a new hit TV show and people will be so excited. It'll be some the version of The Voice or something. And that's just sleep. But hopefully.
Don't go back to brunch, folks. There's a lot of work left to do.
Well, I think, let's not get ahead of ourselves, but hopefully you're right. One last clip from the debate. Here's Donald Trump. And the presidential debate, I think, is mostly about, at least the way that Joe Biden is running it, because he doesn't necessarily have these, he's not running on his policies. Some of them are decent. Many of them are insufficient in my mind, but he's not running on those policies for the most part. He's running on the idea that Donald Trump is a cretin. I'm not a cretin. But many of the Democrats who are running for the Senate, for the House, and even to a certain extent, it's implicit in Biden's run, are running on healthcare, because our healthcare system, our health insurance system, is still woefully inadequate and not up to the task. Here's Donald Trump going up there and basically enhancing the narrative that he doesn't have a clue as to what he's doing about anything.
Health insurance taken away. You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Sure. First of all, I've already done something that nobody thought was possible. Through the legislature, I terminated the individual mandate. That is the worst part of Obamacare, as we call it. The individual mandate, where you have to pay a fortune for the privilege of not having to pay for bad health insurance. I terminated. It's gone. Now it's in court because Obamacare is no good. But then I made a decision. Run it as well as you can to my people, great people. Run it as well as you can. I could have gone the other route and made everybody very unhappy. They ran it. Premiums are down. Everything's down. Here's the problem. No matter how well you run it, it's no good. What we'd like to do is terminate it. We have the individual mandate done. I don't know that it's going to work. If we don't win, we will have to run it, and we'll have Obamacare, but it'll be better run. But it no longer is Obamacare, because without the individual mandate, it's much different. Pre-existing conditions will always stay. What I would like to do...
Unbelievable.
I want to see the transcript of this, actually.
Honestly, I feel like, we need to slow it down, and I need to be on a blackboard and go he started here, he started over here, and then he moved over here, and then he moves over here. We got rid of the mandate, which forced you to buy bad health insurance. And then we made the health insurance good, but it's still bad. And so we're going to get rid of it. But if we don't get rid of it, we'll run it good, but then we'll get rid of it again. Go back. Let's play this again. It's just too insane. There's nobody can follow this. There's the audience for this is no one.
Do you want me to slow it down, actually?
A good follow-up. Sorry, but a good follow-up would be which Republicans advised you to do the bad thing about Obamacare and make a bunch of people unhappy?
That's the thing that's amazing, is that he's both saying it doesn't exist, it does exist. It's bad, it's good. We got rid of the worst part, but it's still bad, but it's good now the way we run it, but we're going to get rid of it because it's bad. Play this again.
The legislature, I terminated the individual mandate. That is the worst part of Obamacare, as we call it. The individual mandate, where you have to pay a fortune for the privilege of not having to pay for bad health insurance. I terminated. It's gone. Now it's in court because Obamacare is no good. But then I made a decision. Run it as well as you can to my people, great people. Run it as well as you can. I could have gone the other route and made everybody very unhappy. They ran it. Premiums are down. Everything's down. Here's the problem. No matter how well you run it, it's no good. What we'd like to do is terminate it. We have the individual mandate done. I don't know that it's going to work. If we don't win, we will have to run it, and we'll have Obamacare, but it'll be better run. But it no longer is Obamacare, because without the individual mandate, it's much different. Pre-existing conditions will always stay. What I would like to do is a much better health care, much better, will always protect people with pre-existing. So I'd like to terminate Obamacare, come up with a brand new, beautiful health care. The Democrats will do it because there'll be tremendous pressure on them, and we might even have the House by that time, and I think we're going to win the House, okay? You'll see, but I think we're going to win the House. But come up with a better health care, always protecting people with pre-existing conditions. And one thing very important, we have 180 million people out there that have great private health care. Far more than we're talking about with Obamacare. Joe Biden is going to terminate all of those policies. These are people that love their health care, people that have been successful, middle-income people, been successful. They have 180 million plans, 180 million people, families, under what he wants to do, which will basically be socialized medicine. He won't even have a choice. They want to terminate 180 million plans. We have done an incredible job on health care. And we're going to do even better.
Okay.
They cut him off there. I mean, that's extraordinary. And the idea that, we're going to come up with a better, they had control for 2 solid years of everything. It's just incomprehensible. Like, he doesn't, I really get the sense that, he could have said all of that in 3 words. We got rid of the individual mandate. 3 sentences. We got rid of the individual mandate. And we're going to try and scrap Obamacare. We can't do it legislatively because people don't want to scrap it, but it's bad. And we're going to work on something better.
Well, it does kind of burn my ass listening to Trump accusing Biden of wanting to give everyone free health care. And then Biden has to jump in like, no, I don't.
Exactly. I'm only standing here because I refuse to give people health care.
It was one of those moments where I thought once more about how badly I would like to see Bernie answer this question in a debate. Because it is true. Like, it sucks for a young, healthy person to be forced to pay a bunch of money for insurance that you can't afford to use. That does suck. And Biden is not going to fix that problem, but Trump is also not going to fix the problem. He's actually going to make it worse.
I mean, the reality of the individual mandate was I think it was like $100. Tax penalty for I don't know what the maximum was, but
and a lot of people took it because it was way, way cheaper for them. Right.
No, that's true. And part of the problem with Obamacare was just that it's too expensive. It was not affordable, and is not affordable. But then they found that they didn't need that at all, anyways. The irony is that Obama ran. He ran against the mandate, and it was Clinton that wanted the mandate in 2000.
Well, I mean, in the context of the ACA, the individual mandate actually helps keep premiums down, right? Because you have to have more people in the pool who are healthy.
Yes, that is exactly the idea.
So Obamacare without the individual mandate, as Trump is saying he wants to do, is just Obamacare with more fatal flaws.
The mandate is gone, and it was fine. The individual mandate is gone. It's been gone for a couple of years.
Right. Okay. I do remember seeing a story about that. And premiums are going up, no?
I think premiums are going up. I think they're all going up. The argument would be like the cost curve is bent. But I think they've basically determined that they didn't really need the individual mandate. People more or less want to get health insurance. And even if it's too expensive, they will buy it anyways. But the mandate itself is gone. And that is what's so ridiculous about this court case. So the Congress voted to get rid of the mandate, keep Obamacare, and these Republican states, about 15 of them, sued, and the DOJ joined the suit. saying that because the mandate is gone, the structure of it is gone, but it was zeroed out, right? That it is not Obamacare anymore, and it is unconstitutional, and that therefore it is not severable. That thing is unconstitutional. The mandate's unconstitutional because it's no longer a tax because it's not asking for money. So there's no penalty. The mandate exists, but there's no penalty. And so it is unconstitutional because it's not a tax like the court said it was in the first place. And so that must be stricken from the law, but it also should kill the entire law because a key part of the mandate, Congress had contemplated the mandate as part of Obamacare. But Congress has already shown that it contemplated not having a mandate and have Obamacare because it did not repeal Obamacare. So the lawsuit is just absurd, and which is why people are so surprised it's gone this far, frankly. But,
Again, they're going to do whatever they have the power to do.
Exactly. I don't know why people don't understand that at this point.
So was the mandate necessary, or was that the Democrats caving and they probably should have just gone without the mandate? Because it turns out it wasn't that important anyway.
The perception was that the mandate, look, it's hard to know how many people are actually going to buy health insurance at this level. So the mandate was a way of, like Jamie's saying, to make sure that the risk pool is large enough with healthy people to make the insurance more affordable. So it turns out that there's enough people who are willing to buy health insurance anyways. You don't need the mandate.
Right. Yeah. I'm just trying to get at, were the Democrats and everybody over concerned about that? And was that sort of self-serving on the part of the private insurance industry?
No, it was, the private insurance industry, this is the thing. Nobody really knew, right? Nobody knew because you couldn't know. It's you're formulating policy and you're making a best estimate. In the 2008 election, if I remember correctly, Edwards and Clinton supported the mandate and Obama did not. And I guess it was $6.95 per adult was the tax if you didn't buy it annually, and then more with children. That's what someone just IM'd. I don't know if that's true, but that sounds like it's possible. And then they had these things where nobody knew how many people would buy insurance on these exchanges, private insurance. And so they had these, that was the slush fund that they called it to pay the insurance companies and this is why insurance companies don't sell insurance across state lines, because they don't know what the relationship will be between how many people come in who need health insurance, who need health care, or how many people are going to come in and how many of them are actually going to need health care. They don't know. They can't, there's no way to predict what a risk pool is going to be unless you've basically built it and experienced it for a while. And so there was these funds that would pay the insurance companies. So the insurance companies would set the price of the insurance, and then they would see who fills in and becomes the risk pool. And then the government promised them a certain sort of cushion, so they couldn't lose X amount of dollars in guessing wrong on what the price should be. The problem with all this is just it's a completely unnecessary business. And they're creating it's an arbitrage on some level that is completely unnecessary. And not only unnecessary, detrimental to something that people believe, with good reason, should be just a service that should be a necessary requirement for a civilized society. You should not be able to say that we have a civilized society unless everybody has easy access. And by easy, I mean not costing anything or, it costs, you're paying your taxes, but it's about making it easy and a guaranteed, health insurance. Health, I should say. Healthcare. And that's why all of these sort of machinations to maintain this arbitrage business that's completely unnecessary. We know it's unnecessary because we have already at least 1/4 of the country doing it through government insurance. Mm-hmm. And so we know that we can function without it.
It's such an ass backwards way to do it. Like efficiency wise, cost wise, coverage wise, there is no good faith defense of it. Besides, I guess that you think Medicare for all is politically impossible. But really, the only reason I think anyone would fight for this way of doing things is to preserve an industry that essentially kills people for money.
Yeah, it's their job, I think, as Wendell Potter put it, is like they make money by denying claims. Period.
It's not just insurance companies, too. It's the entire system. We had Elizabeth Rosenthal on this program a year ago who laid out the claim that it's basically an arms race between every end of healthcare to try and outmuscle another part of it, and the bill gets left with us.
Right. And the advantage of a single payer system is that then you start to impose discipline on the rest of the system. Because what we have now is a situation where everybody, all the players are in the room and they're all just looking at each other and going I won't say anything if you don't say anything. And then, then you get this sort of crazy ass backwards way of billing and inflated prices and all this because nobody's going to, as long as we're all making money, I don't think we have a problem, right, guys? And that's it.
Yeah. And they all collectively fight CMS, basically, who's the only group standing up for patients and people.
All right.
No, it's insane. And the grassroots left populist movement, whatever you want to call it, this is going to be first on the list of concessions that we try to force from the Biden administration.
I think they're going to prioritize climate change. And I think they're going to, I think they're going to prioritize climate change is my guess. I think the administration is. And now maybe they get it done in that reconciliation stimulus bill, but I doubt it. I don't know. Possible.
Well, they're going to prioritize what they want to prioritize. And then we're going to come in and give them some of our priorities.
If you had to prioritize, what would you do? Would you do healthcare first or would you do climate change?
They're both important. I don't know. It's tough to say.
That's what I'm saying. Let's assume for a moment that you could get 100% of what you want for, let's say, Green New Deal or Medicare for all. Which one would you prioritize?
That's a really hard question. I'm going to have to get back to you on that. But the point is the Biden administration doesn't ever want to do Medicare for all. And it's our job to force concessions from the state, from the people in charge.
No, I agree.
I'd probably prioritize Medicare for all, just because I think that helps you win future elections and you can continue building power.
Yeah. Look, if people are sick and people are dying, disproportionately working class people, it's going to be hard for those same people to be building a movement and fighting.
I don't know how I would answer that question, but the only hesitation I would have about Medicare for all, it's your rollout time is going to be at least 4 years, right? At least 4 years. And I don't know how much time we have in terms of climate change. And, you're also talking about, if we're talking the Green New Deal, let's say, when I don't think we're not going to get that either from the Biden administration. Obviously, we're going to push, but I'm just saying in terms of that's not going to be the first thing on the table. I think there is a decent amount of money in there, though, for job creation. And that may have the same, not as strong of an impact in terms of what Medicare for all would do, but it might, if it's properly delivered, people will understand the sort of the value, because you need to raise trust in government and government's ability to do things that are positive for society. not with me, but with a lot of other people. I don't know. It's an interesting question.
There is a connection there, right? Because Green New Deal, if you want to talk about a federal jobs guarantee, a lot of those jobs could be working in the healthcare sector, in the public healthcare sector.
I think Biden's talking about, hiring hundreds of thousands of testers and stuff like that to deal with the pandemic. All right, let's do some IMs to get out of here. Monk Lewis, Oglala Lakota tribe in South Dakota is locking down their tribal lands for 7 days. And Noam is flitting around the country promoting her brand and raising campaign cash. 2 all massive. Was Tim's "They're Coming for Us" comedian shtick his attempt at an unflattering Judy Gold impersonation? I wouldn't put it past him. I don't think so. Maybe. Here for Hugo, if masks are an imposition on liberty, what is driving only on the right side of the road? It is oppressive. Mikey, Colorado. I thought it was a great moment for Biden when Trump was berating him about not getting anything done in 8 years. He just responded, there was a Republican Senate. The silence afterwards really drove home the point. Yeah, that was pretty amazing. That was pretty funny, actually. We should have played that. Also drives me crazy anyone on the left wouldn't vote for Biden. Obviously, neoliberals are easier to fight politically than a psycho-fascist militia death squad dictator. There's zero chance for another term for Trump would be better for the left popular movement. Disco Stew, CNN was very unfair to Creamy Rick. It was 4-on-1. What else do you expect? Situation, but to end up with some Santorum. All right. Barrage, a lot of libertarians I talk to say Donald Trump isn't racist. He's just a good businessman, and that makes more money doing racist things. Like racism is excusable. Yeah. Well, honestly, you hear that a lot. Like, he's not actually racist. He's just doing racist things because he knows that's going to get him elected. Folks, I hate to tell you this, but racism is not a measure of what is in your heart. It is a practice. And to some degree or another, we all practice it. When you practice it to the degree that Donald Trump does, you are a stone cold racist.
It's a practice. Also, it's a system. And if the DOJ has gotten on you saying, hey, cool it on the racism, I'm sorry, you're a racist.
Right. It doesn't matter if you are. Now, I also have no doubt that Donald Trump is personally a racist, but it doesn't matter really at the end of the day. That's the thing that I think sometimes gets lost. I am between the two choices of someone who is personally is has a really open heart and is not racist, but however, to get ahead in this, in what I'm doing, I've got to impose racist policies. That person is far worse than the person who goes home, sits down at the dinner table and says to themselves, they're alone at the table, God, and just goes on a racist tirade. But in every other aspect of their life, when it comes to hiring, when it comes to loaning money, when it comes to, the way that they vote, they have no racist outcomes from what they do. I prefer that person than the first person. Much better society. You want to go home, sit at the dinner table and talk about all the different people that you hate? Fine. That's liberty. But when you start to get into the public sphere in any fashion, and you, whether it's you're saying it to the kids on the block, or whether it's you're preventing people from getting loans, or you're not hiring people, or whatever it is, that is far more problematic. It really doesn't matter what's in Donald Trump's heart. What matters is what he does.
Word. Yeah, we might never be able to stamp out all individual bigotry, but we need to take away the social power of that bigotry.
Exactly. Pragmatic progressive. I think it's unfortunate that you said in your debate review that Biden is proposing nothing that's transformative. Is taxing capital gains at the same rate as labor not transformative? Is lifting the cap on payroll taxes and increasing Social Security payments for low-income seniors not transformative? Is creating a public option and allowing Medicare to negotiate drug prices not transformative? Is providing at $15,000 tax credits for first-time home buyers and tax credits for renters who pay 30% of their income in rent not transformative? How about a $15 minimum wage? I don't know that these are necessarily transformative. I think they're all good policies.
Define transformative.
They're ameliorative.
For me, transformative would be to begin to fundamentally and universally take things that we believe are human rights and have our government provide them. And these are all I think positive things without a doubt, but I don't think that they're transformative. I mean, he's not selling them as being transformative. I think they're positive.
They're better than nothing.
Without a doubt. Jay Chivone, where did Glenn Beck find junior samples? Mexi Marine. In the military, we have taken a stance of strict mask wearing, social distancing, quarantine, as anyone shows symptoms or in contact with someone who has symptoms is tested positive, as well as tracing. The leadership says one thing on the campaign trail, but for sure the DOD has been taking this from the start. Also, the payroll tax holiday we had no choice to participate in. We were all automatically enrolled. It will make it a challenge in the new year for younger service members. Indeed. They get to pay like quadruple, I don't know, more than that in terms of the tax. Rob Cully, the bloke that rung up yesterday, Prop 22, was clearly making $30 an hour as a plant for Uber Lyft. Hopefully calls back to speak to you, Sam, after Monday's interview, but I doubt it. What? Somebody calling Pro 22?
Oh,
I didn't
yeah.
Yeah,
We got a call from a guy who claimed to be making $30 an hour driving for Uber and Lyft. He also claimed to be paying $130 a month for health insurance in California, which seems a little suspect to me. But it's possible that he...
New York. California is much cheaper than New York.
Oh, well. Good for them.
But of course, they're like, I didn't hear the thing yesterday, but it would not surprise me if, of all the money that those companies are spending to fight this thing, that they wouldn't have people calling up to propagandize on behalf of them.
Well, look, it's possible. Like, their propaganda is very effective in some quarters. It's possible that this guy really is the driver for Lyft and Uber who has bought the propaganda that they've been spending millions and millions of dollars to convince everybody of. But I told him, whether he's a scab or just misinformed, he is doing scab work. And then we explained a little bit about why this prop is bad and why a company would not be spending millions of dollars to try to pass something for the good of its own workers.
All right. Just got another IM. Is this Trump family ally and Giuliani speechwriter taken into custody? I don't know who that is. We'll look into that. Today, militant apathy. Today is the anniversary of the Comey letter. Oh, really cool. The parents cannot be found. That's the point of the story. Exactly. New York early voting starts tomorrow. Please vote on the WFP line, October 24th, through November 1. Not on the 2nd for some reason. Dr. Chaos, MD, do you think that in addition to trying to restrain mail-in voting, the next tax on voting rights will be under a 6-3 conservative SCOTUS will be able to limit, remove, or in some way small donors from donating to political campaigns? I think what the attack on voting is going to be the Section 2, not the buy-in, but the thing where you can be sort of like brought into the pre-clearance regime. Abolish ICE, baby. Really great discussion about white cis man masculinity today. Rabbit from Boston, AMR crew. When I was in line to vote yesterday, I couldn't help but get the furious recounting of all the inaction and dysfunction around Trump's COVID response. I could still have a job in healthcare right now. I could have even had an opportunity to say goodbye in person to people close to me who have passed away during this time period. Everything that's happened in the past 7 months has been totally preventable. A lobotomized chimp could have done a better job because Trump made things actively worse. Vote Trump out. Oppose Biden from day one. Have a great weekend, everyone. Analyst Steven, what's crazy is these crazy racists will just go back to covering up before they go out. Go to the New York Times and see the cases increase in Wyoming or Wisconsin. All right, and the final IM of the week. Matt, Jamie, Brendan, good job this week. Dover D over DT. Oh, D over DT. Unshadow ban Reagan before he exclusively goes to another progressive show. Coughs with rhymes with Chadman. Cough. All right, folks. See you on Monday.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the light bulb, but finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot